Good morning. This is the Board of County Commissioners agenda setting. This is a regular meeting. It is Tuesday, September 26, 2023. It is 9:24 a.m. The session is set to go until 12:15 today. This is a hybrid meeting. We're at 3000 Pacific Avenue, room 110. For public virtual attendance, you may follow along on the Thurston County YouTube channel. I'm Carolina Mejia. I'm the chair of the board. Vice Chair Ty Messer joining us via Zoom. He'll be in the boardroom momentarily. And Commissioner Gary Edwards to my left. Also in the boardroom, we have Assistant County Manager Robin Campbell and Assistant County Manager Rob Gelder. We'll start our agenda with the review of the Board of County Commissioners draft agenda for a meeting of September 26, 2023. So we'll call the meeting to order at 2 p.m. The Pledge of Allegiance to be led by Commissioner Edwards and approval of the Tuesday, September 26, 2023 agenda. We have a presentation, and that's the Soul Smart Silver designation.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner. This item is recognition of the county's designation as a Soul Smart Silver County. And Rebecca Harvey will be here to present the board with a plaque. And she will talk about what it means to have that designation.
Thank you. Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
No questions, thank you.
Questions, Commissioner Menser?
No, ma'am.
Okay. We'll move on to an opportunity for the public to address the board and county manager's update.
No items at this time.
Thank you. Any questions for Robin?
Not at this time, thank you.
Okay.
No.
Okay, so then we'll move to consent items. There's items 3A through 3F. We'll start with item 3A, which is approval of the voucher list from the auditor's office for the week of September 11th.
This is your regular voucher list of payments that have been made by the county during the week of September 11th for your approval. This list has no items related to tenant improvements for the atrium.
Thank you.
Okay, questions on that item?
No, ma'am.
Okay, item 3B, county manager leave balance.
This item is regarding leave buyout for the county manager who is leaving the county. And you have an executive session on your agenda later this morning where Maria Aponte and Jane Futterman will join us. And I would suggest leaving the item until that time. After the executive session, if you'd like to remove this item or delay it, we could do so.
Questions?
No questions, sir. Good, thanks.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, item 3C, appointment. Okay, and then these, the next two are appointments, and these were decisions that we made last week. One is the appointment to the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee, and then the other one is the appointment to the Hotel Motel Commission.
Yes, on the first item, actually the board approved both these items for inclusion last Tuesday. The first one is appointing a person that represents a recipient of the lodging tax. Peggy Zimmerman is stepping down from the Fair Board. That is what qualified her to be on the LTAC committee or the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee. And she has recommended I'm sorry. She's recommended Kathy McWade, who is a member of the Fair Board, to take her place. And again, the qualifying thing is you must be a recipient of the LTAC, a potential recipient of the LTAC grants.
Thank you. Questions?
No questions.
Okay. Moving on to item 3E, which is emergency services and subrecipient agreement for fiscal year 22 Homeland Security Grant funding with McLean Black Lake Fire Department.
Before we move to E, did you want to hear about D, the appointee to the TBA?
Oh yeah, the Hotel Motel.
Yeah.
I
I thought we did.
Right,
Yeah, I
we,
thought
we
that.
connected them. I only talked about the first one. I mean, we could certainly skip the second one, but just very quickly, this committee is advisory for the tourism promotion area tax that the county collects and administers through our, the VCB, which is our Visitor and Convention Bureau, and this is by the recommendation of the commission. So, moving on now, thank you. Moving on to E, this is a receipt of a Homeland Security grant funding. This is a pass-through grant for the McLean Black Lake Fire Department. The reason that Thurston County is the recipient of the grant is that we are the coordinating agency for Homeland Security Region 3, and that region includes Grays Harbor, Lewis, Mason, Pacific, and Thurston counties. And any money from Homeland Security for these certain purposes flows through the county to the actual recipient. In this case, it is the McLean Black Lake Fire District, and they will be using the money to form a special operations rescue team. The money is specifically for training and equipment. And Ben, if you'd like to fill in any gaps.
Yeah. This is for the Thurston County Special Operations Team, or SORT. This is in support, as was said, for any number of items of equipment, whether that's rope rescues or heavy rescue or any of that equipment. The total dollar amount sums up to $23,413 and is used to help in support of confined space rescue, trench rescue, rope rescue, high angle victim rescue, and structural collapse rescue.
And that's for the region? Is there a designated 5-region thing?
So there's a 5-region thing that was just listed out. It's Thurston, Mason, Lewis, Pacific, and Grays Harbor. SORT can be deployed to any one of those counties within Region 3, but this is specifically in support of the Thurston County SORT team.
Questions?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you, Ben.
Thank you. Next item, 3F from Superior Court, a resolution adopting revised Superior Court Commissioner classification specification. In your packet.
Oh, God bless you.
Oh, thank you. Court Administrator Kristen Jensen has sent in the local rule, and I'll pass it to Robin.
Thank you, Commissioner. This is a request to revise the classification. This is the job classification for a Superior Court Commissioner so that it is in conformance with recent changes in the local rule. And Kristen is here this morning to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
No questions.
Questions, Commissioner Menzer?
I haven't had a chance to look at this.
Okay. So my questions, right, that I had last week in terms of this, I had a couple. I know the first one was in regards to, this is the local Board of Judges approving this rule, not something that is state required. Is that correct?
That's correct. The local rules went out for public comment. We did receive a comment that was taken under consideration. And that was in regards to a bill that was passed in the state, not in regards to commissioners or pro tem, but for new requirements under Substitute House Bill 1088 that had a 5-year experience requirement for arbitrators. And so that's comment was suggested that the commissioners and pro tem judges would also have a 5-year experience requirement that was taken under consideration. That change was made to our local rule, and the effective date of that was September 1, and that's LSPR 94.8, specifically subsection C.
And then I had a question in regards to just the hiring of this. Would this additional training requirements create a lower pool of members? I know hiring right now is really hard. I mean, attorneys are, it's a struggle to find attorneys anywhere really right now. I mean, with the prosecutors and public defense, it's statewide. So I'm wondering with this additional requirement, right, is it going to create extra hurdles for the court to fill this position in? Or is this something that is pretty kind of base level across the state?
Well, I think we always want to have the highest qualified candidates for our positions, especially those that'll be making decisions that impact the court users. And so the 5-year experience minimum we felt was reasonable. We are currently recruiting for the position of commissioner, and we are getting a decent pool of candidates. We've already scheduled some initial interviews.
Okay, and then, that was, I know you had a question on, do you want to go?
I think maybe, I had a timing question, but I think, what I think the answer is, correct me if I'm wrong, is you've got a court rule that changed, so now that's the motivation for the timing of why we're changing this classification element to conform to the court rule, is that correct?
Correct. It's just to make that class specification conform to the rule that was adopted effective September 1.
And what did the rule say before it required 5 years relevant experience? Was it just didn't say that at all, or was there something 2 years, or what's the change from?
No, this is just an addition, the 5-year. But so the only difference to the specification is just the one sentence that would have the same requirements previously: graduation from an ABA accredited law school, or successful completion of the APR 6 law clerk program. And then we just added the phrase "and 5 years of relevant experience in the areas of assignment." And so that's the only change to the class specifications, just that phrase. And that is just to conform to the new change in the local rule.
Okay. And judges, I guess, do you have a definition when you say the area in which they're hearing? Because, there's family court, there's criminal, but when you get into the civil world, there's like 1,000 different
Right.
quote unquote areas, and there's no way an attorney would have 5 years in all potential civil areas. Or is civil practice just an area in and of itself?
So for the most part, the commissioner position presides over matters at the family and juvenile court. And so that would be family law, probate, juvenile, those types of cases that would be heard at the family and juvenile court.
Well, this rule only applies to family and juvenile court?
The commissioners sit in the over matters at the family and juvenile court building.
Okay, it says pro tem judge at FJC, so this is a limited rule to that facility?
That's correct. That particular portion of the rule, it specifies to serve as a court commissioner or pro tem judge at FJC on a regular substitute basis.
I may be getting off topic, but is there a reason why there's different rules for FJC versus main campus?
Well, that's where the court commissioner would be located.
But you have
And then
pro tem judges at main campus.
Correct, on occasion, but that's not what this is in regards to. And this is specific to like the court commissioner class specification change.
Okay. All right, well, that's a different topic for a different day, I suppose. Just
Yeah,
curious.
because didn't really answer your question. So my next question, I did have an additional question. So it's a 5 years of relevant experience, but then any other training required by the court? I mean, is the court then, Is
So
this requirement gonna be before or after, like, someone is given an offer?
So for example, the other training required, the commissioners are required to take the GAL training. So that would be an example of other required trainings by the court. We're actually currently giving a GAL training right now. That's going very well.
And Kristen, would the court be looking for an applicant to have that training already before they are accepted as a commissioner, or could they get that training after the court hires them?
So this would be a change to the classification that would specify there is a 5-year experience requirement. To be practicing currently as either pro tem or commissioner, the court is requiring the GAL training.
All
So
right,
those are
prior,
things that,
prior to making an offer.
and can you specify, Robin, whether you're talking about the 5 years experience or the GAL training?
I'm talking about the additional training, any other training required by the court. I get that they would have to have the 5 years in the area, but what about this other training? Could they get that after you've selected them?
I think that would be a possibility. It would depend on like all the factors they would be considering when interviewing the candidates.
Okay. Did that answer your question, Commissioner?
You said that this was open for public comment. I'm wondering, when you put this up for public comment, where is it posted? I mean, we have certain requirements, right? Whenever we have a public hearing, I'm wondering for the courts.
So the proposed rule changes always go out for public comment, and that's like to the local bar association. I believe there's some other sources I didn't personally publish, and so we have a staff attorney that had handled taking those comments and so forth, and compiling those from various sources. We do that typically with all proposed rule changes.
Okay, thank you.
Good. Thank you very much, Kristen.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, moving on, department items. Item 4A from Central Services, sole source purchase from Stryker.
So as we learned last week, this is the MTS power loader. It's a piece of equipment that is attached to vehicles that loads and unloads gurneys. The one in question is currently attached to a vehicle for the coroner, and we are purchasing a new vehicle, so we need this, a new one of these power loaders to attach to the new vehicle. And what we learned last week was we can't just take the one that we currently have off the old vehicle and attach it to the new vehicle. And the old one will be retired along with the vehicle and most likely sold at auction. So this is a sole source, and it has been, we're purchasing the same type so that all of the ones that we own at the county can be maintained in a similar fashion. And the sole source has been approved by our internal auditor. And Bruce is here to correct any of the things that I just said and answer your questions.
The one thing I'll add is that this is also to ensure compatibility with our existing gurneys, which are not due for replacement.
Right.
Thank you. Question, Commissioner Edwards.
And the budget area that this money is coming out of.
ER&R.
Thank you.
Questions? No questions for me. Thank you. Okay, emergency services. Ben, you're back.
Yes, so this item is to purchase, defibrillators, for Medic One vehicles. And again, we purchased them through, Stryker. And Ben, I'm gonna let you talk a little more about this one.
Absolutely. So this is more than just Medic One vehicles. This is for all the EMS apparatus that's a help to support Thurston County residents. So it's for 132 AEDs that will be deployed countywide. This has been run through the EMS Council and was unanimously supported in terms of this purchase and replacement. These items have had greater than 20 years of service in the Thurston County community on our apparatus, and they're due for replacement. With that, we did work with the internal auditor, as well as the prosecuting attorney's office and risk management to present this cooperative purchasing agreement with a financing option to you for consideration. Let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you. Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
And it's coming out of what budget?
Medic One
Questions?
the-
Oh, sorry.
The EMS board.
unanimously supported the purchase and replacement of this. Yep.
Questions, Commissioner Menzer?
Where are these, like 132, that's all of them, or is that a subset of them, or?
So in Thurston County, we have 132 licensed aid or ambulances and medic units in the county. This replaces all of the AEDs on those licensed vehicles throughout the county.
Oh, okay, they're part of the, okay.
Yep.
20 years is a good long time.
20 years is a great
Yeah.
long time.
Probably got our money's worth out of the
Well
ones that
worth
we
it.
bought that long ago.
I won't
I'm
make
here
the-
for the next, so.
Item 5B, it's to execute lease space agreement with West Thurston Regional Fire Authority for the purpose of paramedic unit station.
So we are leasing part of the space from the West Thurston Regional Fire Authority. This is for a paramedic unit station that will be located in Rochester. So, Ben?
So this is the renegotiation of a longstanding agreement. Medic 14, as it's known in the system, is stationed in Rochester. It helps us support the southwest portion of the county. This lease space is directly leased from West Thurston Regional Fire Authority Station 11. We get bunk space, common space, office space, as well as two plots that are laid out in the apparatus bay for one primary and one reserve medic unit.
Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
No questions, thank you.
Questions, Commissioner Menzer?
Asked them last week.
I would highly suggest for this item that if you would consider it, potentially moving it up to consent for this afternoon's agenda.
That's fine. That's fine.
Highly recommend that.
I'm highly recommending.
So there,
Reason,
In terms of the dollar figure and the number, just
it's
a
just small.
smaller item.
Okay. Does everyone agree to that? Yeah.
Thank you for your consideration.
Public Health and Social Services, item 6A, Healthcare Authority Contract, case 7016, Criminal Justice Treatment Account.
Commissioner, under number 6, items A and B are related. Item A is for the county to accept the Criminal Justice Treatment Account funds from the Washington State Healthcare Authority. This is a contract that we have on a regular basis. It's approximately $740,000 for the 2 years, from July 1st of 23 through June 30 of 25. That is a state biennium. And this money is specifically to provide services to individuals, treatment services to individuals involved in the criminal justice system. And then item B is approval of the Thurston County plan on how to spend that money. And as you heard last week, there is a committee of county comprised of staff from county offices that determines the best possible uses. And we have Shaylin here to tell you more about either of these items.
Thanks so much for the great overview. I just have a couple more things to add about the contract. So in terms of eligibility for these funds, a client must have a substance use disorder and charges filed by a prosecuting attorney to be eligible for CJTA funds. And in terms of the CJTA local panel, there were some questions last time about who's on the panel and what's required by law, so I wanted to address that. So in terms of district court, so district court actually has been receiving funding for the past few years, since 2020 through PHSS interdepartmental agreements. The last agreement with district court ended on the 30th of June, and so that provided CJTA funds to mental health and veterans court participants to pay for CJTA eligible urinalysis and recovery support. And in terms of what the law says for who's on the panel or not, so representatives from district court and also from pretrial services are invited to the local panel discussions, since their departments have been receiving funds in the past and also have been spending them. They're not technically official members of the panel, but they do provide valuable insight on programmatic activity and also funding needs. But the law basically says alcohol and drug coordinator, prosecutor, sheriff's office, public defense, superior court, drug court, and a substance use treatment provider. And I'm happy to answer any additional questions.
Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
And the dollars are from, maybe you could give us a little breakdown of where those come from and.
So these are state dollars, 100%
it's
state funding.
Pass
It's
through funding.
Yes, it is, from the state of Washington to the county, used by county offices and departments.
Thank you.
Shaylin, you went fast. Can you tick through the panel members one more time?
Yeah, give me one moment here. So it's representatives, so a representative of an alcohol or drug coordinator. This official title no longer exists as far as I understand, but Jason Bean Mortensen, SUD administrator for the Thurston Mason BHASO, has fulfilled this role. And then a representative from the prosecuting attorney's office, and this is Christy Peters, chief of staff.
Okay.
Sheriff's office, Lieutenant Stephanie Klein. A representative from public defense, and that's been Patrick O'Connor, public defense director.
Okay.
Superior Court, which has been Kristen Jensen, you just saw earlier. And a substance abuse treatment provider. This is an appointed position, and Kevin Mercer from Northwest Resources was appointed for this role.
Thank you.
Thank you. Shaylin, I reviewed the email that you sent to us, and I'm wondering, it would be great to see what this funding of 739,000 is, what that panel kind of discusses and what it's used for.
Yeah.
Since I didn't quite see that breakdown.
Yeah, I can provide a breakdown if you'd like.
Okay, that would be great.
Yeah, so in terms of the last agreements and how the funding was used, so funding went towards pretrial services for urinalysis.
Well, how
Towards
much?
Oh, how much? Okay, so do you want the last agreement or the newer one that they've discussed? I can talk about the last one if you want.
The new one, yeah, the new one.
The new one, okay. So for pretrial, they actually don't have an allocation for this year. So I'll just start off with the Dispute Resolution Center. And so they provide restorative justice facilitated dialogue. And so the panel discussed providing an allocation of $1,600 per year. And that would cover 2 cases at a case rate of $800 per case. And then they would also decided to allocate $16,000 per year to the Family Education and Support Services for parenting classes. $40,000 per year to public defense for substance use disorder assessment, as well as domestic violence treatment.
Okay, substance use disorder treatment.
And domestic violence treatment.
And are these done with a contract outside of public defense that they contract with?
So for the providers, yes.
Yeah.
And then mental health and veterans court, so district court, $60,000 per year for urinalysis and recovery support.
How much?
$60,000 per year.
To who?
District court, mental health and veterans court.
And then for the Thurston Mason BHASO, they are receiving so for their allocation, the panel decided $91,000 per year for rental assistance and housing case management staff. And $141,333 towards DUI and drug court for urinalysis, and also substance use disorder treatment for non-Medicaid eligible clients. And then a small subset of that goes towards transportation as well.
300 something, you said?
$141,333.
DUI.
Kind of the balance, right?
And there is just a remainder of $20,000 per year that goes towards admin.
So are we, okay, so from last week, I thought this was the sort of accepting of the money that comes through. But is item B this breakdown?
Yes, item B is approval of the plan.
So I can clarify too. So the plan is to describe what all of the local panel wants to spend funds are. It's not the official agreements. The panel does talk about funding allocations, and so subcontracts haven't been put together yet. Of course, we need the approval of the actual overall HCA contract first, and so those subcontracts haven't gone out yet. But the panel they meet to decide how they want to spend the funds, and then they also talk about funding allocations.
Right, but Shaylin, the contracts would go out once the board approves this plan. This is what approval of the plan is all about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So at Law and Justice Council, I think that's right, I get my meetings confused. I think it was at Law and Justice Council where we had a presentation from the Restorative Justice Program and I knew it was TST, I didn't realize it was CJTA. They said TST, they probably get confused about that distinction. So I wasn't tracking that. And they said that they gave a presentation, everyone was super excited about what they were doing. They said their pilot was very successful. They said they had done 4 cases on the pilot, I want to say, and they said they asked for money for 9 cases, but they only got funded for 2. And it's $800 a case. I'm just wondering, can you shed any light on why the panel did not want to grant their request for at least as many as they did last time?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So in 2023, their agreement was for $10,000. And none of it was spent. And a lot of it was, there was some challenge, from my understanding, some challenges getting referrals. And so we're working with Elizabeth and our other stakeholders as well to get them some more referrals for the Restorative Justice Facilitated Dialogue process. And so in addition to that, there were some increased asks from DUI and drug court for, they're anticipating increased amount of clients and also just higher costs in general. So their asked increase from 2023, they asked for $150,000. And so then they expended about $118,000. And so since they had increased up to 140 from how much they expended in 2023, we had to balance out quite a bit more, trying to trying to allocate more funding towards increased asks and try to be understanding that there was some underspending in the DRC contract. So the panel felt that it was best to decrease the DRC contract and reevaluate 6 months in to see where other funding needs might be, because we can still shift funds around should there be underspending in other areas.
Okay, just on the front end, I understood most of that, but on the front end, you said there was 10,000 and they, or 10,000 and they didn't spend all of that. And that's, but my understanding was they did the number of cases that they said they were gonna do. So where was it just in 1 year and then they spent it later, or what is the timing of that underspending?
So for 2023, so they were allocated $10,000 under their contract, and they didn't spend any of it
In 2023?
Any of it?
in 2023. Correct.
Are they gonna be sending invoices, I'm wondering,
I thought
later?
they were
towards the-
showing us that they had done.
What was the presentation? I mean, if they're saying that they're doing,
Well, I don't, I
Yeah,
mean,
that doesn't make
they
sense.
talked about it real general. I don't know about the timing and this year's funding and that year's funding. We weren't looking at that. We were just saying, you know, they've been funded for X number of cases and they did that number of cases and they thought it was successful and they said they asked for 9 cases, you know, so I'm wondering why they were asking for 9 if the panel felt like they couldn't even do 4, you know?
And I had discussions too with Elizabeth as well, and understanding that there have been some challenges with referrals and trying to maybe look at some other referral sources and expand it a bit. I know that they've been receiving referrals from pretrial services, and they've been working on a case right now too that they think would be eligible for the process and would completely go through. But yeah, as far as my understanding is, when the 2023 contract did not get spent.
And then that money was shifted to somebody else to be spent, or it's still sitting there for them to spend, or how does that work?
So how it works is usually the funds, if it's underspent, and it gets shifted to somebody else. So typically, somebody who has a more flexible contract. So usually the housing case management team, so they're able to flex their program. So if we provide them with more funds, they can provide more rental assistance. So it could go towards there. It could also go towards I'm looking back here at our records as well. We did allocate more funding towards public defense because they were using a lot more of their funds. And so, yes, it tends to be very flexible.
so I guess my question is on the board's role, right? We're approving, receiving the funding, we're approving this overall plan, you know, and then this separate the separate board decides kind of where the money is split up. And then, but we're approving that with the plan here that's presented. So if there's shifting in those funds, does that have to come back in front of us, or is it something that just happens internally? So I'm just trying to figure out
If
the
they're
rule.
doing minor shifts, though, as Shaylin's describing, when one area is not spending as much as they said they would, and they're gonna shift it somewhere else so it gets spent, those are minor things, and those are being done by the program. And I'm assuming that's in coordination with the panel. Is that right, Shaylin?
That is correct.
Okay, so what if the Board of County Commissioners wanted to say that instead of some of these things, they wanted to fund, for example, a SCRAM program in district court? How would that work? Is that the prerogative of the Board of County Commissioners to change some of this plan?
So I would need to get further clarification on that. I believe that, I mean, I'm open to feedback about the plan as well. This is something that the local panel reviewed, and they agreed that it was something that they still wanted to pursue, all of the different initiatives on there. But if there's something in addition that they would like to pursue, I'm happy to be open to that. But I would have to check and see how that process works. but we are coming to the board for approval of the plan, so it makes sense that we'd be open to feedback on it.
That's kind of, yeah, I'm just wondering what our role, like, is it like, you know, the tourism, like, you know, promotion, like, is it just pass-through funding and we just have to kind of
Right, you
rubber
can't,
stamp
you
whatever,
can't
we don't,
change it.
we can't change it? Or is it something where we can be like, we're not going to approve it unless, you know, just, not saying that I'm gonna do that, just
Yeah.
kind of just, I just kind of want to see what our role in this is in terms of this
Is-
funding.
Is this time sensitive or could it be delayed for a week while we look into that?
The plan is time sensitive. They do need a, as a requirement for the contract, they need it by October, and I believe it's the first week of October that they need it.
And that's fine. I'm not asked, I don't need an answer to that now, I guess, for future as we're
For
thinking.
next year?
For next year as we're, as ARPA's,
So this is a 2-year plan, but, so what, if I may, what I'm hearing is that we'll go ahead for now. And the question is, can changes be made for the, second year in this contract?
I'd be happy to look into that and follow up with you.
Is that good?
I'd be inclined myself to just keep at least keep the restorative justice program stable. Double this amount, so it's 4 cases a year, which I think is what they had. And then that's $1,600. I mean, take it out of
Right.
DUI court, and then if they're not getting the referrals, we shift it back the other way. But otherwise, it looks like we're reducing our commitment to that because we're cutting it in half, like, but you know, so, right, you could just shift it, I mean, they don't get any referrals, that money can be shifted right back. Sounds like there's an unlimited amount of need for different pieces of what the DUI court's doing, right?
Yeah, funds can be shifted, but that's definitely our plan. So we meet like about every 6 months or so to review where there's underspending and where it could be shifted to make sure that the funds do get used.
So Shaylin, could the board amend the plan that they're going to adopt this afternoon to basically, what would it be, about $4,000 for the DRC?
I would just need to look into it and I'd be happy to follow up. So I apologize. This is a very new process for me, how CJTA works. And so I'm still learning as well.
Commissioner Edwards, you've had a question, sir, go ahead.
Did you say earlier that there is some Medicaid funding that goes with this possibly? Did I hear that?
Oh, no. So when I talked about Medicaid, the funding for CJTA that goes towards DUI and drug court, that's for substance use treatment for non-Medicaid eligible clients.
For non-Medicaid?
Mhm.
Okay.
And I would be in support of Commissioner Menser's request if that's possible to increase the DRC.
3,200 is what I'm saying, it'd be, instead of 1,600 a year, 3,200 a year to fund 4 cases a year. Remove it from the 141,000 whatever, which was kind of just the
Right.
carryover DUI piece, and that's not giving them what they asked for, but it's at least not slashing them, because I think they showed success.
Shayla, do you know the RCW? Do you have that handy that creates the advisory panel?
Yes. It's RCW 71.24.580.
So Rob's on that.
But yeah, I'd be happy to look into these and then I'll follow up with you before this afternoon.
Shaylin, just a quick question if I could. So there's the plan, but then there is the next step of actually initiating those agreements with all the potential recipients for the funds. So there is another action that the board would be taking prior to kind of finalizing this.
Correct. And so as far as I understand, the interdepartmental agreements with Superior Court, District Court, Public Defense, and Pretrial Services, they don't need the board's approval, but they do get legal review from Rick Peters. And then for external agreements with the ASO, Family Education and Support Services, those go to the board. And then there's another external agreement with DRC, since it's under $10,000, it doesn't need to necessarily go towards the board, as far as I understand.
Thank you.
7124-200 says that expenditures of county funds under this chapter shall be subject to provisions of county budget laws, which gives a lot of prerogatives to the Board of County Commissioners. We're gonna have to look at this and see.
Boils down to the authority of the CJTA
Panel.
panel.
Right.
Okay. So more info to come on that.
But we won't be jeopardizing this time frame that's been laid out, so we end up going past a point in time that, oh, you guys aren't eligible anymore, you diddle-dinked around here just enough to get past it. I don't wanna do that.
No, I think that we should, given that today's the 26th, that we should go ahead and approve this.
That's what I'm wondering.
And if it's easy to shift the costs,
It seems like needing to procedurally to go back to, if the board would like to shift the dollars around, to if Shailene could take that request back to the CJTA panel, just to make sure that there is that concurrence.
Well, so we can move to approve the updated criminal justice treatment account plan with Commissioner Menser's amendments to it. I don't know how to, you're good at framing this. I don't know how to frame.
I mean, I tried to keep my proposal extremely modest so that there would not be an issue with having to go back to a panel and feeling like we were disrupting the plan. $3,000 out of 141 to help this program, I think, is well within our prerogative, and I feel confident that would not be disruptive, but
I think that's what we don't know if it is
we
within our
could
prerogative.
we could do a motion to approve the plan with the amendment conditional on it being legal, kosher, something like that. We could phrase it in a way, and then if it's not, then it just drops away.
Okay.
That way we don't delay anything.
Yeah. That way,
A conditional amendment,
a conditional, yeah.
I could try to phrase that.
I think just that way we're able to do it, if it's within our purview, then we, that can be our recommendation. And then if not, then maybe Shailene can,
But there is a section 5A that says that the county or regional plan submitted for the expenditure of formula funds must be approved by the panel established in B. So it seems like the panel is that entity which does the approval of the plan. So if there is a proposed amendment to it, it seems like it would have to go back to the panel.
Can we go backwards and
amendment.
say it's conditioned on the panel approval?
We need a little time to read this and because there's another piece of it.
So, a learning moment for next year, Shailene, if the board actually has the latitude and obligation to approve the specifics of this plan, we're gonna need to see it before the week that it's due, because obviously we can't, it's an illusory power if we can't actually exercise it because of timing.
Thank you for the feedback.
Okay.
Yeah, it says it's gotta be approved by the Board of County Commissioners.
Okay, so then, well, more information to come on this, and then maybe we can add some language to the motion, just depending on that, on what we get. Okay. 7A, Public Works, Resolution adopting roll of rates and charges for Offutt Lake Management District number 24.
Thank you, Commissioner. Set the other item aside for a moment, and this is one of the final steps in establishing the Offutt Lake Management District. This particular action is a resolution that adopts the role of rates and charges. You held a briefing last week on Wednesday, September 20th, regarding feedback from the public hearing that was held. And no errors of the role of rates and charges had been found. So staff are requesting approval of the role as submitted, and Tim is here to answer any questions that you may have.
Good morning, Commissioners. Nothing to add at this time. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Questions, Commissioner Menzer?
I don't have any questions. I mean, this is obviously a difficult situation for the board because the way the vote is cast, we know that more people affected don't want this lake management district than do, but because of the weighting of the vote under state law, the measure passed. And I think now the process is such that we don't have the latitude to do anything except decide whether the rates and charges are properly calculated based on the petition that was submitted. Is that all accurate, Tim?
Yes, I believe that's all accurate.
Okay, so.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead, sir.
Tim, maybe you could just quote as per RCW, I don't have it in front of me, but the authority of moving forward.
3661 is the statute related to lake management districts.
Yeah, all laid out in 3661, right?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. And yeah, we had not length discussion about this issue, and so, thank you. Okay. Then we will review our standing items, and we do have a public hearing at 3:30. If we're not able to get through our agenda, we will be pausing our regular meeting to go to this public hearing, and this is a public hearing for the 6-year Transportation Improvement Program for the calendar years 2024 through 2029.
Yes, Commissioners, this is your Transportation Improvement Program, or the TIP. It is a 6-year plan required by state law that outlines all of the transportation projects in the coming 6 years. It is referenced and incorporated by reference in the capital improvement plan. This is the required public hearing that needs to be held prior to the first Monday in October, I think, and then you would actually adopt the plan along with the budget. And Matt's here to tell you more.
Well said, Assistant County Manager Campbell. My name is Matt Onsman, Thurston County Engineer. The only thing I'd add to that is the amount of outreach that Public Works has done regarding this plan. We sent a copy of the plan to the Washington State Department of Transportation, other local agencies, the Department of Commerce. We put a copy of the plan on our Public Works website for review. We did a newspaper advertisement stating that if anybody wanted to review the plan, to contact Public Works staff and we could make that available. So I really think that we've done our due diligence in trying to outreach this plan. And as of 10:19 and 17 seconds, we have not received any public comment.
Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
And if anybody wanted to hear the information that you gave us recently on a briefing, That was when?
That was one of my talking points I forgot. Thank you. So staff briefed the Board of County Commissioners on June 22nd. So if you go to the Thurston County YouTube site and go to June 22nd, you'll see yours truly briefing the board on the 2024 to 2029 Transportation Improvement Program.
Thank you.
Questions, Commissioner Mensah? Any questions for me? Thank you. Well, wait, how long do you estimate the presentation this afternoon to take?
So given
Sure.
So given that all this information has been presented on June 22nd, I anticipate it being a very short presentation because I'll only be presenting the very high level changes to the current plan.
Maybe 10 minutes or less.
Will be less than 10 minutes, yes.
And we rarely get public comment on these plans.
We made up for it yesterday on it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, next is the review of the October 3rd agenda. Call the meeting to order at 2 p.m. Pledge of Allegiance to be led by Vice Chair Mensah, and then there's the approval of the Tuesday, October 3rd, 2023 agenda. We have a presentation, and that's Domestic Violence Awareness Month proclamation.
Yes, as stated, this is your proclamation declaring October as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And Christy Peters from the prosecutor's office will be here to accept the proclamation. And I don't know if we'll have any other guests.
Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
No questions, thank you.
Questions, Commissioner Mensah? No questions for me. Okay, next is an opportunity for the public to address the board and county manager's update.
No items at this time. However, if we hear something this afternoon, I will be following up on that.
Thank you. Questions for Robin?
No questions, thank you.
Okay, consent items 3A through 3E. Item 3A is the approval of the voucher list for the week of September 18th.
This is your weekly voucher list. This is for payments the county made during the week of September 18th. And there are no tenant improvements for the atrium on this voucher list.
Okay, and it looks like item B, C, and D are reclassification of positions. So we'll start with item 3B.
Yes, the first item is in the auditor's financial services office. This is a reclass from a business applications administrator to a systems manager. This position is responsible for management of the county's financial services software, currently Munis. And when we transition to Oracle, Oracle has much higher technical requirements. So a higher level classification is appropriate for the higher level software that they'll be managing.
Does the person have the qualifications for the
It's
higher
the
level?
Position vacant.
I do believe that the position is currently vacant.
Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
What's the change going to amount to? Usually
Oh,
we
thank
get
you.
a reference about the
Yes.
dollar amount adjusted.
Hang on just a moment and I'll pull that up. Just give me a sec. This is next week. The office intends to absorb for this year, but the difference in pay at the, come on, open, at the high end, a business applications administrator At the highest step is $8,158 a month. This would increase to $9,978 a month. That is an increase of $1,820.
What was that increase to, 9,000 and what?
$9,978 per month. This is, by the way, a difficult class to recruit for currently. We have a hard time filling our IT type positions.
And even though this is assigned to the auditor, does this position work in IT?
So this position currently does not report to IT in a, what Sherry refers to as a matrixed position. However, I do believe that Sherry's been talking to the auditor about the possibility of moving in that direction.
And should this position be filled, it may not be filled at that top number anyway, right?
Of course,
Depending on
it could be anywhere in the
qualifications.
range, depending on the person who's a successful candidate.
Thank you.
You said it's a hard class to be, we referring to the old one or the new one?
All IT positions are currently difficult to fill.
So this isn't really about that, though.
Yeah, no, it's not about that, but I would mention, because it sounds like a lot of money. Yeah, but these are
1,800 a year.
highly skilled,
1,800 a
hard to
month.
fill positions.
But possibly for recruitment, this is probably necessary.
So my question is, in regards to the fact that I understand why they're doing it because the position is vacant, but this project, and I'm seeing it again this week, keeps getting kicked down.
It does, it's
Yeah.
currently in negotiation. We expected the negotiations to last 2 weeks.
And so we're gonna be upgrading a position and waiting for this project to kind of, but then we don't even know when this project is really going to have an impact on us. So I understand the timing of it. I guess it's just my own frustration at the fact that there's just this huge timeline of, we're gonna be upgrading these positions and yet there's really no system upgraded to really
This
work on.
time. That's true. However, we do know that eventually we will have an upgraded system, because even if not Oracle, through Sierra Cedar, we will have an upgraded system because we must replace Eden. And Eden and Munis really need to be replaced together. So, if not Oracle, then we will be pursuing a replacement. And this higher level position is what's gonna help us when we have the new thing. And just to get there, we currently have a temporary person filling this position, someone who came back from retirement. And she is an integral part of moving the project forward. So I think that this is an important to move.
It's been such I don't know, again, this is my own personal beef with just,
Many frustrations with the project.
yeah.
Me too.
And then I guess my next question is, has Sherry given a thumbs up on this position saying like, yes, this is,
Sherry has seen this and has been talking to the auditor about this position. I know they've discussed having it matrixed with the IT. So I do believe that she's in support of this.
she's in support? Okay. Okay, I would like to have her support if we're gonna be adding any kind of, or reclassifying any kind of IT positions in any office, just because,
Make sure it all fits.
yeah, make sure it all fits and that that position actually fits with what the auditor's office is actually trying to do, and that we're just not reclassifying positions based on, you know,
Needs rather than
Needs,
wants.
yeah.
I was
Yes.
gonna say, I mean, I have to know, I mean, when we're looking at, I mean, this is over $20,000 a year potentially, and when we're looking to be cutting things, I mean, it has to be articulated to me that this is a mandatory, like, it's in one of our, if it were on the budget request, it would be one of those absolutely have to do, no way around it, because the new position, what I heard you say up front is the position as it exists won't be qualified to handle the new system that we've invested in. So I think if that's the situation, then I can get there, but that's the kind of like nexuses that we need at this point for these types of reclasses that, you know, people act like they're non-controversial, but that's significant money.
Right. I'll check in with Sherry and double check with HR.
Maybe just to follow up on what Commissioner Menzer said. When you do check in with Sherry, you said this was kind of the ability to coordinate this change from Munis and Oracle. But it sounds like from Eden too, so they need to know everything? Is that, what should the job classification reflect that?
Eden is going to be managed by someone in HR as it is today. So Oracle comes with modules. And the financial module will be managed by financial services. The payroll and HR modules will be managed by HR, and the budget module will be managed by the budget team. Much like the different systems that we have today. So this person needs to be an expert in financial services to be able to ensure that the system that they're managing supports the accounting needs of the county. And they also have to be an expert in IT to be able to manage the system to ensure it does what we need it to do.
I think that's even a better example of why Sherry needs to be involved.
Right.
Yeah.
So I will double check with her and next week have more information.
Thank you.
Great.
Yeah, I agree with Commissioner Menzer's statement in regards to it is a huge impact, and while, you know, they're gonna absorb it this year, I mean, it's not this year that we're facing those impacts, it's for next year, and I think any kind of little change, it hurts. Okay, the next two items are from Central Services, and they're also classifications, Robin?
Yes, they are. So the first item is reclassing a senior office assistant to an administrative assistant one. This position supports the capital project staff in Central Services. The office assistant position is currently vacant, and we have been waiting for this reclass to fill it. And the reason for the reclassification is HR reviewed the position and the person is working out of class. They've got higher level duties assigned to them to be able to support the project manager. There is already a second position within that unit that is at the higher level, and both people are doing the same work. So we need to increase the class.
An admin assistant one is higher than a senior office assistant?
Yes, it is. And the pay difference is at the top of the range, an increase of $496 a month.
And this are through interfund charges that they're charged, or?
These are specifically charged to the projects that they help support. So most of the funding comes out of building reserve or whichever fund we're using to support the project.
Any additional questions on this?
No,
And this position is vacant?
Yes, it is.
How long has it been vacant for?
So this position has been vacant about 6 months because it has been, there have been challenges in getting the reclassification approved because it had been, up until very recently, a position that was a reversion. There was a person in Public Works who had reversion rights to this position. And so HR told us we couldn't reclass it until we resolved the reversion rights. It is a very long story that I would be happy to tell if you really want to hear it, but the reversion rights were resolved because the person that had those rights took a job with the state of Washington 2 weeks ago, and so 3 weeks ago. So we were able to move forward with the reclass. It's been vacant waiting for this.
Okay, maybe that's the answer to the question I was gonna ask, because I was wondering how this fits in with the class and comp study. I mean, we did a study, we saw not a lot, but a few people here and there working out of class and whatnot, and so why are we cherry picking this right now? It sounds like this one's just kind of been
This one has been on
standing in the
hold.
queue.
Yes.
Other than that, there's not really an answer to my question, but that's the answer, okay.
Any additional questions on this? Okay, item 3D.
3D is a reclassification in our fleet for, the position had been or is currently a radio technician, and it is being reclassified to an equipment mechanic. The radio technician had been doing a significant amount of work until in the last year, that amount of work has dwindled. With the conversion at TCOM 911 to the radio system, to a system that the county does not need to maintain, that took a lot of work off this person. And then they also support communication technology in sheriff vehicles. The person who had been doing this for many, many years retired, and the amount of work for a radio tech is a very, very minor part of this job. So we don't need a radio technician. What Fleet really needs is an additional equipment mechanic. We have a backlog of preventative maintenance on our vehicles, and an equipment mechanic would be able to assist with addressing the backlog. In addition, our mechanics would be able to do any amount of work that we still do need as far as communication technology. And this is actually a decrease in pay of $887 a month.
Go ahead, Commissioner Roberts.
it sounds like this person isn't needed right now, but is the reason that position is not needed right now is because we're installing all new equipment with the contract under Capcom, and that's gonna be maintained for a period of time by the vendor, I think, that's doing that. But what happens when that expires? And I think we need this person to be there again. So in 2 years? Are we gonna have to come back and say, well, now we need to hire for this and reclassify and all that? So there's,
So-
you know,
I don't think so, but I'm gonna ask Bruce if he will fill in the blanks.
So Bruce Rowland, Food Services Manager. There's, in addition to the radio piece, an enduring piece of this that is going away is the programming. So the new system is actually managed by TCOM, and they will be doing over-the-air programming to these radios. So a significant portion of what the radio technician did.
I can't
was
understand,
maintain-
Bruce.
Hey, Bruce?
Something's with your
Yeah.
mic.
The sound is off and we can't, it's not very clear. We're not sure what you're telling us. Maybe turn your video off to allow more streaming. Now try.
So a enduring piece of the radio technician position's responsibilities that go away? No?
Still not good.
I think it's probably the acoustics of his office.
It's a little better.
Do what?
I think it's probably the acoustics in his office.
Oh. So staff are thinking that it might be the acoustics.
This item is set for next.
So it is set for next week and we could get more information to you on it, but I think what, the particular type of, equipment that was purchased by TCOM is going to be managed, I believe, on a permanent basis under contract.
Well, the reason I question that is because every government entity that participates
Are responsible
TCOM now
for
is getting-
maintaining their
yes,
own.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's, and so.
I'm very aware.
I think we're gonna be stuck with that same thing
Yep,
farther down the road, the same as Tumwater or Yelm.
but we'll be contracting for that maintenance, is my
Through
understanding.
TCOM?
Not through TCOM, nope. Because you're absolutely right. Every entity that received the radios is then responsible for them.
Yeah, after the initial
Right.
install and
Yep,
warranty period or whatever it is.
Yep.
So
you're right.
I just wanna make sure that
it's-
we don't
it's,
miss something here.
And Bruce is gonna correct me if I'm wrong.
We'll hear more about
but-
it next week.
Yes, we will, but I'm pretty sure that we have to work through the contractor or the manufacturer.
Yeah, okay, well, that, you might be right.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
just
new
trying
tech.
to-
Any improvement on my audio on this side?
I think so.
So that's a
Yep,
little
something.
better. You want to try again?
Yes, I just keep it short. An enduring piece of the radio technician's work has moved to TCOM. So the programming of this system is being managed by over-the-air updates by TCOM. So all of the programming associated with the radio technician position has gone away permanently. The remaining work, which primarily is antenna connections and antenna testing, can be partially covered by an equipment mechanic who is familiar with electronics. And then the digital radios themselves are fairly complex, and we assess that can be done by outsourcing.
All
Thumbs up
right.
For me, sounds like a good
Hey,
idea.
Bruce, maybe just to follow up, I guess just from a layman's perspective, would this be the way we hear Tesla upgrades their cars, I think? They do it through a satellite or something when you get an upgrade. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, absolutely. So the radios are tied to vehicles, and
Yeah,
what happens is we actually inform TCOM of the serial number that's moved to the new vehicle, and they push updates to include what asset number, what sheriff's asset number is using that radio.
okay.
So all of that has been taken out of the Thurston County radio shop, and you're right. Yes, it's over the air.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Crazy.
I surprise you once in a while.
Thank you, Bruce.
Yes, you do, sir. Okay, 3E, Human Resources, a resolution setting benefit contributions for 2024.
This item is to set the standard plan and the associated costs with the rest of the health benefit plans for Thurston County employees. HR staff reviewed the plans with you last Tuesday, and this establishes the plans ahead of open enrollment.
Okay. Questions on this?
No questions, thank you.
Okay.
And the choice made by the board was the choice that kept the benefits at the most
That's right.
status quo
The
level.
best benefit for our employees. The majority, or rather the most popular plan will see costs go down for employees that subscribe to that. That is above the standard plan. And some employees on the second most popular plan will see their share go up. But they will have choices come November 1 during open enrollment if they'd like to change the plans. And HR will reach out to those employees whose costs will increase. This was the most beneficial for all employees.
I'm good.
Good, okay. No questions for me. Department items, item 4A, this is the standing item for TC
Yes.
Connect.
Yes, as I said earlier, this item is still in negotiation and I would recommend that we push it forward another week.
How are we on?
We're looking at implementation next June or July at best.
Okay.
What is it that's holding up this particular item?
So
Just
there
details of
was
this.
yes, there was a lot of work that was done to identify specifically what the gaps are between the current state of the system and what the county needs. Intensive analysis of how those gaps are or were not covered by the current contract that we have and which of them are requirements under that contract for Sierra Cedar to provide. Sierra Cedar then took the list of gaps and did an analysis of the amount of time they determined would be necessary to close those gaps. They assigned a dollar amount to each of those items, and we are currently negotiating which of those items the county should be paying for or which items should be delivered under the existing contract.
And we have lawyers in those negotiations, or who's doing those?
The negotiation team for the county is Sherry Ilg, our HR director. Oh, thank you, not HR, I said HR. Thank you for catching that. Our IT director. The Sierra Cedar representative is a vice president with Sierra Cedar, and we also have an expert on ERPs, Rob Roque from GFOA sitting in. That's the main negotiation team, and our legal team is kind of in the background, ready to review the contract. This
But
is the same negotiation team that negotiated, or the same positions that negotiated change order number 1.
The question of whether or not the contract covers the gapped items really seems like it needs, Sherry will need help from legal and advice.
It is my understanding that she's
Getting
working
what she
very
needs.
closely with the prosecutor's office.
Okay, moving on to, so that item is stricken from our agenda. Item 5A, Community Planning and Economic Development, is to set a public hearing on the code change to align CIP and budget process.
This item is a procedural change. State law allows for the capital improvement plan to be changed during the year after you adopt it. It allows for any changes regarding a change with the budget. So our current process is to have the planning commission make recommendations, review and make recommendations on every change to the CIP. This change in county code would allow for, I'm gonna call them minor changes in the CIP, where we add a project in relation to changes in the budget. For example, the dollar amount might not be minor, but the change is where you only have, for example, one project. The roundabout in Yelm is the perfect example that we recently went through. The legislature appropriated funding for the project that was completely unanticipated. There was a tight turnaround time for the county, and the amendment had, under our current process, had to go through the planning commission for approval when we knew we were going to accept the money and do the project. So this change to the county code would allow those types of changes associated with the budget to not go through the planning commission process. So it's a procedural change. And we have Andrew who can answer any questions.
Andrew, anything you'd like to add?
The only other piece I would like to add is just that we would just, with this amendment, be removing the planning commission review, but we would still maintain the Department of Commerce notice, the SEPA determination, as well as the board public hearing process and all the different noticing aspects that go with that.
Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
I guess, why isn't something like this, talking about the roundabout change, why isn't it part of the transportation improvement plan rather than the capital?
Because in order to do a project, we must have it on the CIP. I do believe that that project also was a change to the TIP. The process to change the TIP, and I'm looking around to see if there's a
TIP person?
Yeah, I see Matt's not here now, but I think that the TIP is a much simpler process. It does not go through the planning commission. It is, requires a unanimous vote by the Board of County Commissioners to change the TIP. The CIP, however, currently has a extensive project. We're trying to streamline that when it's something that's part of the, connected to the budget.
I guess, I don't know if I know enough about this at this point, but just as a technical issue, when we put something in here as a description, I would prefer that it's instead of CIP, it should say capital improvement plan. For the
Sure, we
public.
can, of course, we can spell that out.
Robin, you might have said this, but if you didn't, my mind was, kind of spinning as you were talking. So you might have said this, but what would be is there a defined threshold for when it cannot, when it can be diverted from the planning commission?
So this
You
proposal.
said minor, but what does that
Well,
mean? And
so.
who
so
decides and all
That's
that?
why I hesitate to use the word minor, because the money might not be a minor amount. Minor in terms of we're just adding
The volume of, in terms
one
of the
or
overall plan,
making
it's a small
adjustments to
piece.
the amount. So, yeah, if we're only adding like one or two projects, and they're tied to the budget that the board is approving, specifically tied to the budget, then we would not run it through the planning commission. We would still do the annual process that we do now, where the entire CIP is changed,
It's almost like
that
it's,
would still go through the.
it's almost like
Planning Commission.
amendments versus
It is.
the formal annual,
It absolutely is.
so.
And
The whole thing, though, I will say that even that annual process is called an amendment
Right.
because it's amending the, the
Comprehensive
comprehensive
plan.
plan. Yeah.
Okay.
So even that is called an
Confusing
amendment.
terminology, but
That's why just calling it an amendment is confusing.
And I would also like to add that within the change that we're making in Title II, we are clarifying what a minor amendment is, which is up to 2 changes to projects. It doesn't touch finances. It's just a change to the project scope or a new project or removal. And we add a threshold that it must be completed by October 1st. Otherwise, at that point, if we're trying to make an amendment, we can just incorporate that into the annual update that we make.
By eliminating the planning commission, is that just eliminating one, I don't know, bureaucratic step or something? So we could expedite it when the legislature does something like they did this year on that roundabout at Yelm?
Right, or when the Board of County Commissioners, if we get grant money, not just from the legislature, but sometimes we're successful with a grant that we never anticipated getting. And if we do that, then we want to get the project on and get it rolling, and not wait a year, to amend the plan. So it is, I would say that it's eliminating one bureaucratic step, but
Okay.
yeah, it's definitely shortening the timeline. It would still go to a public hearing, it would still.
we
as
had
Andrew
that
said,
odd
go to
example
Congress.
where the board voted to purchase the Mottman complex.
Right,
And then the improvements had to go to the planning commission and then they voted not to approve them.
right,
We're like, okay, well, we just,
thank you.
thank you for your advice, but we just spent, this money for this purpose. We're not gonna sell the building.
Right,
So I don't know, it seemed like an odd procedural process in that instance.
hence the change.
Okay. Any
Well,
additional questions on this?
Is there a place for legal to be involved here to let us know that we're not jeopardizing something by doing this or not doing this? Because I don't want to run up against a problem that we might have. Okay, this is required to get this grant money here that might come through in the fine print. So I don't know if Andrew, if you know the answer to that.
Is this,
So
go ahead.
thank you, Commissioner Edwards, for that question. We have had legal review this to ensure that we are maintaining compliance with the Growth Management Act. And there is a stipulation that we are not required to go through the formal process with the Planning Commission. We can go directly just to the board.
I guess on the Growth Management Act, but what about other issues? And I'll refer to what Commissioner Mentzer mentioned, or maybe the roundabout out at Yelm. Those are outside of the Growth Management Act.
No, the CIP is a component of our comprehensive plan, which is governed by the Growth Management Act.
It all gets complicated.
It does.
You have to show adequate public facilities for so many years. It's all about
For a
planning.
growing community, yep, it is all about
For
planning.
X number of years of projected growth.
Yep.
That you plan to fund it and all.
Right. Certain types of funding the project must be on the CIP. Other types of funding, like certain federal monies, do not need to be. But we try to ensure that all of our improvements are on the CIP. Okay, thank you, Andrew.
Thank you.
Public Health and Social Services, item 6A, Department of Children, Youth and Families, Interlocal Agreement number 24-1176.
This is an annual contract that the county receives from the Washington State Department of Children, Youth, and Families. And the funding is used in support of the Nurse Family Partnership Program in Thurston, Lewis, and Mason counties. And Jen is on to answer any questions that you may have.
Questions? Commissioner Edwards?
No, I don't have any questions on this. Just kids are, what, 30% of our population and 100% of our future. So we got to get it right.
Questions, Commissioner Menzer? I have a question. So this funds for 162 families in Thurston, Lewis, and Mason counties, Jen, but I've been hearing from Providence, I've been hearing from other stakeholders that there are still a lot of families waiting to be in this program, and I'm just wondering how many more families are in that queue, I guess, that are waiting to receive these services, because this 1.2 million doesn't really cover the need that we have in the community.
Yeah, and I can get that exact number for you. I do know that there are wait lists still for Mason and Lewis and Thurston as well. And I want to say they're roughly about 50 for each county, but I will get those exact numbers.
For Thurston, I thought we were over 100. That's the letter that I received from Providence.
Yeah, and it fluctuates. So I don't want to speak incorrectly to that. So I'll make sure I get you the exact number. I do know there is a wait list.
Thank you.
I would also mention that this is not the only funding for the Nurse Family Partnership Program. That program has additional funding from our state, or not our state, our county general fund, from treatment sales tax. I believe that this piece is the Medicaid funding. So there are other types of monies also in this program, and still a waiting list.
And still a waiting
Yeah.
list.
How much less money are we going to bring in on treatment sales tax? What's your anticipation on that?
Well, that funding, so growth has slowed for sales tax overall,
Right.
including GST.
Right.
We'll review that financial plan during your budget presentations. But just like the general fund, instead of pulling in about a 5% growth rate, it's closer to 2.5%. This year, unlike in prior years, the board won't be able to just fund everything.
That's what I'm wondering.
Yeah. There are going to be limitations, choices that you'll need to make, just like with the general fund.
May I ask a clarifying question real quick? Brandy just realized in the action here that the authorization request is for the interim director to sign the agreement. Is that supposed to be the director or the assistant director? I just want to make sure I have it correct.
Do we have a change that we don't know about yet?
That should be the director.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Scratch the word
wow.
interim.
They must have just copied the language from last year.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, and that would have been Kurt.
Right. This is an annual contract.
Good catch.
Okay, thank you. Item 6B is Department of Ecology Solid Waste Financial Assistance Agreement.
So this is a biennial agreement, a 2-year agreement based on the state's biennium. From the Department of Ecology, they provide assistance for solid waste enforcement activities. And those activities are complaint response and inspection of our solid waste facilities. This funding goes through public health in the environmental health section, and the match required is from tipping fees. It
Steve
looks
online.
like, yep, Steve's here
And
to answer any
what
questions
is
you
the
may have.
match?
So the
What percent?
required match for this contract, the state funds can't fund 100% of the activity, but as I said, the match is from tipping fees and just a moment, be able to tell you how much.
Local match is
Got it.
$79,214.33.
And what is the job entail, what does the job entail on solid waste enforcement activities? What are they, supposed to be doing
So that's
in regard to solid waste? Are they picking up, garbage that's dumped somewhere, or what's going on?
So according to the AI submitted, this is for complaint response and inspection of our facilities, but I'm gonna let Steve describe that a little better than I can.
What this financial assistance agreement allows us to do, it allows us to go out and provide technical and educational information to property owners to help them come into compliance or stay in compliance with handling of solid waste. It also allows staff to go out and do compliance monitoring if we haven't been successful in educating people on how to deal with the solid waste. And then in a worst case scenario, I guess, if it entails enforcement, then it covers that. But to answer Commissioner Edwards' question, it doesn't provide us staffing to go out and pick up garbage, so to speak.
Well, like hazard waste sites almost that become, I don't know, this one we had over here, what was it, on Kaiser for 20 years or?
Correct.
Does it give us funding to clean up that type of it's almost like a
No.
disaster area.
No, it's not to do cleanup.
Okay. Well, being you're overseeing it, Steve, I think it's okay.
Well, thank you.
Commissioner Mensah?
Nope, good on this one.
Okay.
It's been going for a while.
Money coming in.
Yep.
Okay, item 7A is to set a public hearing on an ordinance to amend Thurston County Chapter 8.22.010, and this is for the membership of the Solid Waste Advisory Committee.
So as we move toward a 5-member board of county commissioners, we are updating many of your advisory committees. This one is for the Solid Waste Advisory Committee. You had a briefing on August 24th, and the recommended structure is to retain 15 members as it is today, and you would take the 3 current at-large members. One of those members would convert to be an agriculture representative, and the remaining 2 at-large members would need to be representing the 2 specific new districts. And I'm going to ask Jeff to please tell us a little more about the composition.
Certainly. Good morning, Commissioners. Jeff Bickford, Solid Waste Manager. Yeah, as was mentioned, we had a briefing on this on August 24th. The change here really, again, there's 2 pieces. First is we are adding officially the agricultural representative, which is actually required versus RCW 78.205. So doing that. Additionally, the other part of the makeup of the committee that was we had a concern about had to do with the current ordinance states that we need to have 3 citizen representatives from each of the 3 commissioner districts. Obviously, there will now become 5 here shortly. There was concern among the advisory committee about just adding additional positions and having the committee be too unwieldy. So they ultimately made a recommendation to the board to maintain the size of the SWAC at 15 members, add the agricultural representative, but reduce from 3 to 2 the citizen representatives, with the specific condition that those 2 need to be from not the same commissioner district. So they have to be from different districts. And with that, I know we had this discussion recently. I'm willing to answer any other questions.
Thank you. Questions?
No questions at this time.
Questions, Commissioner Mensah?
No.
Okay. No questions for me? Okay, next is item 8A, and this is from the Sheriff's Office. It's interlocal agreement with the City of Olympia Dive Team and Mutual Aid.
Under Sheriff Pearsall is here with us. Thanks for waiting through the
Sticking it
review of
out.
two
Sticking it out.
agendas. Yeah, for your item to finally come up. So this item is an interlocal agreement with the City of Olympia. It's a mutual aid compact and supports the dive team. And Under Sheriff, would you like to tell us more about it?
Yeah, it's just a kind of a generic interlocal agreement that establishes a framework in which we work with the City of Olympia with our dive team. And then we can allow their people onto our team. We can go into their city to do missions when they request it and that kind of thing. So very simple.
Thank you. Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
No dollars. No more questions, thank you.
Okay. Questions, Commissioner Menzel?
No, thank you.
No questions for me.
All
Thank
right,
you.
thank you.
Thanks for hanging out.
Sure.
Thank you very much. Okay, then we have our standing items, and we do have a public hearing at 3:30, and this is from Community Planning and Economic Development. And it's a public hearing for the Pogue Site-Specific Land Use Plan and Rezoning Amendment.
Thank you, Commissioner. This amendment would change the Poe site. It is a specific parcel from residential designation to neighborhood convenience commercial. You may recall from your work session on August 23rd that this parcel is right next to a railroad. There's a small parcel right next to it that has a small coffee stand. And then the next parcel down, I believe, has a tavern on it. The planning commission held 4 work sessions.
And a gas station.
And
right
a
after
gas,
that.
yep.
And a mini mart.
Everything very close to it already has commercial activity. The planning commission held 4 work sessions and they held a public hearing on June 21st. The planning commission made no recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners on whether or not to approve this action. However, upon review, the board chose to put forward to the public I believe there are 2 options. One is to only approve the Pogue parcel and one is to approve both that parcel and the parcel immediately adjacent. And we have Amelia here to explain better than I could what this proposal is.
Yeah, hi. Well, are there any outstanding questions right now?
I think for a clarifying point, there were 3 options and what was going forward to the hearing was option 3, which was inclusive of those 2 parcels.
Both.
The one that would be sandwiched between 2 similar.
Yes, where it would be the applicants and the immediate southern adjacent parcel.
Knowing that the board would end up getting testimony across the spectrum potentially of consideration.
Go ahead.
I wonder if, when the time comes for you to present this to the public at this public hearing, if you could bring, I know Google offers, you drive by and it shows kind of the street view, because the aerial view of this particular potential adjustment just doesn't give it the right exposure, if you will, to what's going on. Because if you had the street view, you would see all of those issues that Robin laid out. So kind of showing this thing is stuck in between some very commercial activity right now. So that way the public will have a better view of it. Could we do that?
I can try, yeah, I do have currently some photos that I took back when I did site visits early on in the process at each of the adjacent properties, so I can bring those in.
Yeah, just whatever. I mean, I use that example only because I've seen it before. But just some visual so that everybody can see what's going on from mini market, gas station, then you go over the tracks, and then quite a large, I don't know if it's a restaurant or tavern establishment, coffee shop, another business, kind of to show the whole layout, because when we had this hearing initially, the aerial view just did not suffice to get the point across. Thank you. However you want to do that. Okay.
Thank you.
Question? No questions for me on this matter.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to proclamations and awards and advisory boards and commissions. Jamie Caldwell, clerk of the board.
For proclamations and awards, outside of what's already been reviewed, I have no updates. For boards and commissions, I do have quite a bit. I've included new applications for the Fair Board, the Citizens Commission on Salaries for Elected Officials, the Noxious Weed Control Board, and the Thurston County Chambers District Number 3. Kathy McWade is requesting reappointment to the Fair Board. The Auditor's Office has selected Barbara Steffen to replace Armetta Cave, who recently resigned on the Salary Commission. The District 1, 2, and 3 voting members for the Noxious Weed Control Board are requesting reappointment to their positions. I've included the background info on the recruitment done for those seats for your review. The Chambers District, Drainage District Number 3 is requesting that Aaron Allen be appointed to the vacant seat that they've had for quite a while. There's another member that's planning on resigning in the near future, and without this appointment, they won't have a quorum to be able to meet in the future. Standing applications for the Racial Equity Council and Timberland Regional Library Board of Trustees have been included as well. It's my understanding that the Racial Equity Program Manager is working on an amendment to Resolution 16097 to expedite the appointment process for that council, as I did not realize that there was a specific process that one had compared to the other ones. I also needed some further direction from the board regarding the appointments made last week to the Fair Board. The appointment recommendation that I received from the Fair Board President recommended 6 of the 7 applicants. And I didn't notice with that recommendation when I received it that out of the 7 seats open, 2 were District 3, but none of the remaining applicants were District 3 residents. I have the list from last week up here that I can pass around that shows the applicants and the available seats, and I'm hoping that you'd be kind enough to designate exactly which applicant you'd like to be appointed to which seat so I can update and correct the action taken last week. The current table provided in your packet shows what seats would be left if the appointments made from last week stand.
Questions?
So one person has to be eliminated because there's only 5 at-large seats and we had nominated 6.
Unless there is further action taken to try and expand that board, possibly also to include the additional districts that we're going to be having.
And none of these members are youth?
Fit in District 3.
No, fit in District 3.
Commissioner Mentzer's aide also has attempted on several occasions to reach out to Rebecca Faust because she is the only District 3 applicant, and to date has not received any response from her, which was also why the Fair Board didn't recommend her, because they didn't receive a response from her either.
Well, the applications aren't even in this packet, so.
I can provide you all of them.
I mean, I have no basis to, unless we just draw one out of a hat, I mean, which is fine. That's fair, I guess, but I don't have any basis to say this person should be the last one bounced from the spot.
And I was provided, I can also reach out to the president as well, because the recommendation was just, we recommend, there was no further information provided to me. So if you'd like, I can also do that as well and provide, follow-up next week.
I mean, the thing is, I don't wanna jerk around with this and like lose 5 people working on the fair board who are ready to go right now. So unless my seatmates have a better idea, I would say we just draw a name out of a hat. That person can wait until we get the new districts or whatever, unless we can determine that one of the 6 would fall into one of the new districts, and then they could be on tap for 2024. That's another way to go about it, but I just like to not lose these folks. You know, that's 5 people's worth of manpower getting busy on the fair while we mess around trying to figure out one slot. That's nonsensical.
What's the penalty if we get it wrong and we have one more person there? Do we lose our birthday or
Yeah.
what's the penalty on that?
Uh-oh, we made a mistake.
So let's not
I'm not
break
sure
out
on
a
it. I
sweat
can
on it.
definitely follow up on it and reach out with a staff contact, because it is quite a large board compared to most of the other advisory boards and commissions that we do have. So I can definitely touch base with the couple of staff members that I can work with on it, get some clarification.
And this is the first time where there's been also, since I've been on the board, where there's been this interest to actually help and be a part of the fair board. And the fair board, I mean, the volunteers that we've had, they've done an amazing job with just how little volunteers there are, right? That just trying to put all that together, trying to work on it. And I think this is the first time that, you know, that we have this huge group of volunteers that just came in and they're excited about it. And so I'm kind of like, what is wrong if there's just one more at-large member, someone there, you know, participating? I don't see anything bad in it. I feel like the fair board is just such a huge undertaking every year.
Why don't you just, and another follow-up maybe is just, run this by Teresa as well, I guess, you know, just to. I don't think it's a big deal. I don't think we ought to break our pick over this one.
I don't think so. I'm open for any suggestions, if we would just want to take a name out of a hat, or if we just kind of want to turn a.
Well, and tell them like you're technically you're temporarily ex officio, like you're there, you're a member, you contribute. Your vote doesn't count if they had a contested vote, but how many things are they actually voting on that are split?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, let's not lose their input if they want to serve.
But I can definitely, if you want to hold off on making any decision on this, I can definitely follow up with the staff contacts, like I said, for the fair board, and get some more information for you. Get you the applications again for those appointed members as well, so you'll have those to review too.
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
The only like really time sensitive ones that like something would have to be done pretty soon in the near future is the Citizens Commission on Salaries for Elected Officials and the Thurston County Chambers Drainage District appointment. Those are both kind of
Thurston
like a
County
rubber
Drainage Ditch appointment?
Yeah, it's the Thurston County Chambers Drainage District number 3. It's quite a mouthful, but they've had an open seat from what I understand for quite a while. And they do have a member that is looking to resign in the near future, either at the end of this year, beginning of next. And if that happens, it's there's only 3 seats, and it will leave them with 1 person on there and basically unable to meet for a quorum, to even recommend an appointment of anyone to fill those spots.
And they're not making a recommendation.
They are. They have. Yeah, it's included in your packet
Oh,
there.
okay.
I've got the
Mr.
email
Allen.
correspondence with them in the minutes from when they made the proposal to ask the board to appoint him back in July, but I was waiting on follow-up information from them so that I could get you the most information. I anticipated some questions on it.
Salary Commission is, we don't get a chance, we don't even weigh in on that, and they're meeting like right now, so that when we should put on today's agenda.
If
Just get
the
it
board
moving.
approves, that would be ideal.
And
They are
then,
up against an RCW deadline to get that spot replaced as well, so
Yes.
they're really hoping that a decision could be made sooner than later.
yeah, I would recommend making that today, and then.
Mary Hall makes the recommendation out of a
And she
drawn out of
has.
a hat, right?
Yeah, but we
Yep.
have to just rubber stamp it here.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we can add that to today's agenda.
Derek Vetter, I know that Derek Vetter, right? Yep, so this is down in Rochester. Is he the one that's gonna continue to serve, or?
For now, I believe he's also the one, I'd have to go back and review, but I also thought that he was one that was looking at resigning in the near future. I can verify through the email correspondence with, I think it was
Marcus
Kara that I was
Humber,
speaking with.
I think I know that person too. Interesting, okay.
It does, Eric does meet all the requirements to be able to serve on this, for this drainage district. So that was some of the questions I had, is they said he met all the requirements, but I didn't know exactly what those requirements were. So the correspondence I had, with the gal that sent me the minutes and the request, I've included it all in there for your review.
But Derek is vacating position as of the end of the year. He makes a motion to ask for Eric Allen. I know Mr. Vetter, he's a pretty solid individual, and I'd go with his recommendation.
If you're good, we're good, eh?
Okay.
Good.
So can we put that one on today as well?
Yeah, that's fine on the consent agenda. Okay, so we're moving forward with the Thurston County Chambers Drainage District and the Citizens Commission on Salaries for Elected officials. Jamie will be doing some follow-up to see who of the appointments do they want as a temporary ex officio member as we kind of figure it out. And then, but then I'm also seeing Kathy McWade for a reappointment here.
Her term expired, she sent it in saying that her term expired, I think at the end of August, and so she is requesting reappointment. I can definitely put her on for today as well, because she clearly has intent to continue to serve. She was just recently nominated as the president with Peggy's exit, and she also is getting nominated to the LTAC for that Fair Board representation. It's very simple for me to add her to today
I think she took over as chair last meeting.
We should probably keep her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The domino effect.
We'll move her to today as well.
Okay, I'll get those edits made for you in the, during the break, and make sure you have notes on it so it can be covered.
And Noxious Weed Control Board, we have 3 reappointments for that.
I don't believe that their terms expire until the end of October, but they went through a whole process. I included the background information on the AIS that they've got going so that you understood, because there was a whole recruitment process. I believe they were following probably by RCWs. They put out notices that they were looking for applicants. I don't believe that they ended up receiving any except for the currently serving members looking for reappointment.
Yeah, these ones are,
Let's reappoint them.
yeah.
I can move them up to today as well.
They did their outreach and there's no applicants. That's a good board. Just keep them going.
Great. Also today.
Okay, and then Timberland Regional Library, that doesn't expire till December. And then the Racial Equity Council, I know DB is here. DB, if you'll come up. There's been, we were having some questions about the reappointment process. DB's done some digging as well as Jamie, and the resolution that was pulled up, there were some
There is a complication.
complication. That's
Yes,
a good
there
way to put
is.
it.
So we have DV on, she's here today, thank you for being here. But we have her on your agenda next Tuesday to propose a change to the resolution to eliminate the stakeholder committee from the process to fill vacancies on the Racial Equity Council, basically.
Yeah, so if the board will remember, when we passed the resolution, we approved a stakeholder committee to approve the members, and they're the ones who passed on the recommendation list to us. From that recommendation list, we made our selection. That seems very cumbersome for positions that are, emptying out if it's just one position.
Vacancies.
For vacancies, yeah. And it seems an additional just workload for that stakeholder committee.
There was no stakeholder. It's more than cumbersome. There was barely a stakeholder committee to begin with. And there's no reason to continue that system when
So we
barely
have
functioned
no
from the-
record of who that might have been or.
I'm aware, but
Yes.
it was a threadbare
Right.
stakeholder committee, so it makes all the sense in the world to move away from that.
Great. So DV will have a proposal for you next week.
Do we
We'll
have
get
to have a
that
public
to you
hearing
ahead
and
of
everything
time.
on a resolution?
Not on a resolution, I don't think it's
Uh.
in county code, but we'll have that information next week.
Yeah, don't think it's in code.
No, I don't think it is.
And so then we'll be waiting for that resolution to be adopted by the board before, I think we make a selection, since how it is right now, we would have to go through that process. So this will give Phoebe a little bit more flexibility. Okay. So we will be waiting on those. Okay. And so that will, unless anyone has any other questions on the advisory boards and commissions for the Fair Board, Jamie's going to be reaching out about the members that we appointed last week and giving us some feedback on that. We are moving with Kathy McWade for reappointment on today's agenda, as well as Barbara Steffen and Eric Allen. And we're moving on with Carol, David, and Paul from the Noxious Weed Control Board. So that will be added into our consent agenda this afternoon. Okay.
Can we take a break?
Can we do PIO check-in and then we can do break? PIO check-in.
Good morning, Commissioners. Anna Rose, Public Information Officer. This morning, I will be sharing social media analytics from the last month. The Thurston County Facebook account has approximately 14,500 followers. Over the last 28 days, we posted 82 times, had 700 reactions to our posts, and that means like a like or a heart. We've had 173 people share our posts and 88 comments on our Facebook posts. Starting this October, we will be holding our annual fall photo contest where Thurston County Facebook followers will be able to send in fall photos. The winner will get their photo featured as our Facebook cover photo throughout the fall season. On Twitter, we have approximately 7,400 followers. This month, we tweeted 71 times, with our top tweet having a 10% engagement rate. On Instagram, we have 3,155 followers and gained 41 new followers this month. We had 11,000 impressions, which is the number of times content we published was displayed on a person's screen. On YouTube, we have approximately 1,053 subscribers. In the last 28 days, we have had 6,200 views on our YouTube channel, which is about a 50% increase from last month. Our top watched video this month is the September 13th preliminary one budget briefing with 367 views. And finally, the Friday Five has 1,006 subscribers with an average open rate, which is the number of people who open the Friday Five email, of 51%. Of our 1,006 subscribers, we have 430 subscribers who regularly open and click on the newsletter. Any questions?
Questions?
I wish Hutch was here because it keeps growing. He always asked about if it's growing. I guess it's growing.
Okay, 11:32, let's take a break. We are back with agenda setting. We're back from our break. It is 11:51. We left off with briefing, public hearing decisions pending, and this is Planning Commission public hearing follow-up. And
I'm going to just turn it straight over to Josh.
And I'm gonna turn it straight over to our operations manager, Jeremy Davis from Community Planning and Economic Development.
Good morning, Chairman Hiat Board. Jeremy Davis, Thurston County Community Planning and Economic Development Operations Manager. Today we're here to be with you to discuss the public comments that we heard at the September 19th public hearing on the proposed changes to Chapter 2.04 of the Thurston County Code regarding the Thurston County Planning Commission and its formation. Some of the public comment subject areas that we heard last Tuesday afternoon, including the change in the Planning Commission terms, that's from 6 to 4 years, the number of planning commissions, 9 or 10, and the apportionment and appointment method for planning commissions. And that's having, if we go to 10, 2 per district, if we stay with 9, having the 1 per district and 4 at large. And then also we heard public comments regarding the removal of current planning commissioners with the proposed action for the board to sunset the current planning commission and reappoint members. And that's all been proposed in the ordinance. The board previously held a work session on this back in July, on July 28th. And it was the board decision at that time to move forward with the draft ordinance that we brought to the public on September 19th. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions the board may have, or if you want to delve more into the public comments or provide us with direction on where you'd like to go with this.
thank you. Commissioners? Commissioner Munster and then Edwards.
Okay, yeah, good summary, Jeremy. Those were basically the items I wrote down from public comment. The term length, I think 4 makes sense to me. I don't have an opinion about the staggering. You know, if the seatmates heard something from the public that made more sense to them, my mind is open about that. I didn't put a lot of brain power into the staggering. I'd like Travis to, at some point, to just set aside the contention that we heard from the chair that we're not legally permitted to remove the planning commissioners, because my understanding was that's not the case. But assuming we can, the other concerns I heard were we'll lose institutional knowledge. I think that's absolutely true, which is why when the commissioners are doing their reappointments, they should factor that in to their thinking very carefully. Second, I heard that we should not be we should be as non-political as we can, which is why I'm supporting the 9 with 4. I think having 10 where each commissioner does their own 2 makes it more political. And the reason even though I started out supporting 10 with each commissioner appointing 2, I was convinced to go to the 9 with each commissioner appointing 1 and having 4 at large is that I think it depoliticizes it to a degree. We get a spread across the county and each commissioner having someone representing their values, but then we as a collective kind of hammer out the last 4 and come to some kind of an agreement and look for issue areas. And I think that will have a balancing effect on the overall structure. So I support that still, although, you know, like I say, I think, you know, I understand the argument on the other side. The only other thing I heard in public comment was about letting new commissioners weigh in, and that one kind of confused me because, you know, we're not gonna, whether it's 1 or 2, we're not gonna make appointments for the new commissioners. We would, I would imagine, work out the at-large positions if that's what we're gonna do. And if that's what they mean, then I think this board, having sat as commissioners for a much longer time, when I first joined the board, I barely knew what a planning commission was, had no idea the scope of their role, what values and qualities would make a good planning commissioner. So I think that we are capable of hammering out, you know, and I want to get ahead of what Spokane told us. Number 1 takeaway from the conversations that I asked the county manager to have to make sure we get some lessons learned from a community that just went through a transition of 5 commissioners, and it was make sure you get your planning commission sorted out and get it sorted out in advance. So I'm not going to step on the toes of new commissioner appointments, but I do want to get this decision made. I do want to get this new planning commission oriented so that they have a lot of important items on their plate. So that's where I'm at on everything, but.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Oh, do you want me to go?
No, you can. I don't care.
You have your hand raised.
I have to think that two, if each commissioner appoints two, it could be more representative of that commissioner district. And if we go with each commissioner with one and four at large, I don't think that will be quite as representative of the individual districts that commissioners come from. So that's my take on that, I guess. And having 10 versus 9 just makes it simple. Just two for each district. And oftentimes we don't have all the members in attendance.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
Is your proposal that the two commissioners have to live in the district? Because right now, each commissioner gets an at-large appointment. So would I have to find two people in District 3, or is it one District 3 and then I could appoint anyone from anywhere in the county I want as the commissioner for District 3?
You know,
Which is your proposal?
I had not thought of that, but I'm not adverse to that either.
I think we have trouble with recruitment if we force us all to get potentially, if you're forcing us to find people that have to live, and now that we have 5 districts that are 2/3 the size, we already have that issue to some degree with our current very large districts, as we saw today on noxious weed anyway, just a thought.
We're thinking about. Then when it comes to our paper here from September 26th from Jeremy and the bullet points, I would, my option, my preference would be 10 instead of 9 on the first page. On the second page would be 2 members from each commissioner district, but taking into consideration what you're talking about. And scratch out the 4 at-large members. Change the term to 4 years. I'm not sure that I agree with that. I do think that experience counts, and I really don't see why we can't leave it at 6 years and have staggered appointments as we move forward. I would rescind the current appointment process and reappointing. And at the time of initial appointment, some shorter, some longer, which will allow for staggered terms. I think the new appointments is what that ought to say. And terms would be staggered to ensure continuity. And current members will remain in their position until expiration, so it would eliminate that kind of the purge and then reappointment, I guess.
That's not possible. If my commissioners don't live in my district.
Well, but were they in your
Can't force
district?
them onto another
Yeah,
district.
but were they in the district when you appointed them? Because I think the appointment process talks about they live in the district when appointed. They're not prohibited from moving in the RCW.
So would that mean that the new commissioners wouldn't get to appoint someone?
Forcing my
until the
commissioner on the new
current
commissioner.
No,
members?
I think the new commissioners should get appointments.
But they won't,
Well,
because they'll
how
be stuck
would
with
they
mine
if
that are now in their district. 2 of mine live in District 4. That would be the new commissioners' appointments. Unless they get unseated.
Well, I guess we'll get legal in here
That
to
was-
see what it would take. I don't know the answer to that exactly. I obviously hadn't thought that through, but I'm
So that
open
was
to it.
the whole point of having all terms end on December 31st.
You can reappoint, I mean, we can all reappoint our same commissioners if they're in our district and we want to do that. And we should do that to some degree because we don't want to lose all the institutional knowledge, but we have a conflict. In my district, I have 3 commissioners. 1 will continue to live in my district. 2 will not. They live in District 4. If we can't unseat them, then they will become the 2 planning commissioners for
Should we
District.
hear from Travis maybe before I go on about that?
Well, I don't
about
know.
that issue?
I don't know there's nothing legal. I mean, sure, but.
Well, the RCW lays out a way to remove a commissioner, and I think it has to do with cause, but I'm
So-
not sure of that.
We can definitely hear from Travis, just so that the board is very clear. He's been a part of this process from the very beginning. And what you have in front of you, he has approved. And the way that Commissioner Minzer is interpreting it is the way that we've interpreted it as well. So if you'd like to hear from Travis, that's fine, but just know that legal's been involved. We think that,
Well,
just like Commissioner Minzer said, we don't want to force.
I want to ask Travis some
Great.
questions.
Travis, go for it.
Good morning, commissioners, and if you could restate the question for me, I just so I understand what you're all looking for.
At our hearing, an RCW was referred to, in which was the process to remove a sitting planning commissioner. What the question is if we change everything, do we have to follow that RCW? Because we're going by one of two RCWs, right, Jeremy?
We're under 3563, yes, sir.
And it might, maybe under there, it probably the reference to citizen, I think it was the planning commissioner chair that made the statement that if a planning commissioner is to be removed, it had to be within these perimeters.
Okay,
So is that still true?
So that's also the question that Commissioner Minzer asked earlier, that he asked for clarification. So Travis, the question on the table that I'm now hearing is Planning Commission Chair Casino's statement that this is not able to proceed in this way. Please provide the legality on essentially the refresh of the Planning Commission as it currently stands.
Yeah, well, thanks for the clarification. I'm familiar with that provision, and that does pertain to removals of a current planning commission. What's different here is I understand the resolution that you're anticipating, passing in the near future is that you're sunsetting and terminating the existing commission in order to comply with state law and accommodate the new commissioners. And so under that authority, the county can reconstitute and terminate the existing planning commission to meet state law.
Okay.
I will mention though, that from a practical standpoint, if your decision this morning or direction is, hey, no, we want to maintain all existing commissioners for future term, the point is moot.
Sure.
But I guess from just a legal perspective, I've reviewed the resolution and it meets legal requirements.
Okay, so that solves that
So
particular issue.
So we could, what you're saying is we could have a system where, for example, my two commissioners that won't live in my new district are the planning, get to serve out their terms, and then the new commissioner won't get to pick, which frankly is what happened, when I joined the commission. When you have 6-year terms, you often don't get to pick any planning commissioners. And I reappointed one, and one has never come up, and and one person resigned. So in 5 years, I've picked one planning commissioner.
Good.
Yeah, no, Commissioner Menzer, oh, I'm sorry, there's more to that.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna add that, taking a step back, and I know this is like a Rubik's Cube, right? That you're all coming up with different policy rationale, and then staff are trying to come back with ways to cut the cake, so to speak. But I'll just get, you should entertain this thought. The requirement for actually residing within a district boundary is up to your discretion, and you can decide as a board how you want to put these folks on the board. So the only real significant limitations of statute is the number of members and the terms. And there's a range by the statute, but in terms of how you all want to select and put folks on the board, that's largely a policy call.
And just to be clear, I don't want to do it that way. I just wanted to clarify that we could do it that way. I want to respect what I heard at public comment, which is to let the new commissioners appoint their own for their new district. So I am not advocating for a system where we, force those folks into the new district positions.
Or maybe another way of, if I could rephrase that, Travis, was that there's nothing to preclude if there was a board of, or planning commission of 10, each commissioner has 2 appointees. It's also at the discretion of the board to set up the future planning commission to not necessarily have residency requirements other than within Thurston County. So you would have 2 appointees potentially from anywhere in the county, but they're yours.
I don't think anybody supports that. We all want at least one person from each district. The question is, should they both be from the district, or could it be one and one at large? But correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think anybody wants to say everything should be at large and we could all pick someone from Olympia, or we could all pick someone from Yelm. That's not a good planning commission, I don't think.
Okay,
Okay, well, could I finish up
yeah, go
on
ahead.
that? Okay, well, I think I was in the same shape that you were in, sir, when you came in. I didn't get any immediate appointments, but when terms expired, and if it happened to be in my district, then I got to make a recommendation. But I will refer back to that time when you and Hutch and I were Board of Commissioners, that board, if you will. I made a recommendation of Barry Halverson to be appointed to the Planning Commission as my representative. But I got outvoted by my 2 seatmates, yourself and Hutch, and then the next person on the list was Eric Casino, and he came up, and then
But
I
that
think
was
I had voted against it, and you 2 voted for it.
But just to remind you, that was before we went through and actually realized that the code says that the commissioner nominates, and then my mindset on that completely changed. It was no longer a community, it was no longer a board decision, it was a nomination from you. If we had not wanted Mr. Halverson, you would have gotten to nominate the next person. We didn't know that back then. We were doing everything collectively. And then we went through systematically and went through all of the codes and board, and we realized that the code actually says not only the commissioner from that district can nominate for that district. And so that's a totally different process, and we're keeping that process.
Well, no, I just didn't want you to feel bad, because
Okay.
the same thing happened to me.
Yeah,
So,
sorry.
That's all. That's the only reason I bring that up.
Well, I was just thinking out loud that, you know.
It has evolved.
It is, I guess it is theoretically possible, as Travis said, if we wanted to say, well, no, we're keeping all of our planning commissioners, and too bad, new commissioners, you get the people you get. You know, we could do that. That's not really what I want to do, because I heard a lot of people comment saying, let the new commissioners weigh in to some degree. It's a new, fresh district. That's why I think the reset's kind of good.
I'm good for that, but whatever we did, I don't think we ever said, well, we're gonna dismiss some and appoint others. We never reached that conclusion in our discussion of how we were or we're not gonna do it. It may have evolved, you know, somewhere along the line, but so we're still evolving, I guess, is the best way I can put it. And I got to thinking, and that was one of the reasons I decided to go from my own perspective from 1 appointment and 4 commissioner-wide appointments, I guess, was because I got aced out once.
I see what you're saying.
And so I thought, no, if each commissioner gets to make their own recommendation, then truly the district has a better chance of being represented. So that's why I made that change. So
that's where I was at the beginning.
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay,
we both just flip-flopped. I started over here.
Evolved and followed your lead. Anyway, so that's why I'm and I like the experience of 6 years, because it's a very complicated business. So that's the only reason I'm throwing that in. I do think 4 years, if they went with the commissioner's term, then it becomes pretty political. So I'm opting for 6, then there's commissioners that come and go. Planning Commission can stay with some consistency. Anyway, because of that, then I would rescind bullet point, rescind the current appointments. I would get rid of that. And I would get rid of, at the time of appointment, I wouldn't get rid of that. I would just say that we need to have staggered terms when we make those appointments. The same as we did, somehow this came about when we elected 2 new commissioners. I think 1 commissioner gets 3 years and 1 gets 1 year, and then they have to stand for reelection. So it would just be a staggered process. And where it says current members will remain in their position until December 31st, 2023, I've scratched out December 31st, 2023, and will just remain in their position until their expiration date.
So I'm still unclear what you want there after hearing from Travis.
Well,
So my two commissioners would become in District 4?
they may, but it sounds like that we can make that determination on our own. Sounds like Travis is telling us that we have the authority to set it the way we want to do it.
But I'm asking you, what do you want to do?
Well, I think we ought to let you do what you want to do for your district, and the two new commissioners, let them do what they want to do for their districts,
That's
but
not-
not get rid of anybody.
That's not possible.
I don't think that
All those things can't be true.
is what Travis is suggesting.
Am I putting words in your mouth, Travis?
You can't have both.
You can't have
You gotta-
both.
Unfortunately not.
Well,
The-
I don't know.
the
I don't know if you can
ability
have both
to-
or not. I'm looking at Travis trying to figure it out.
Travis, you either sunset or you hold over. You can't sunset and hold over.
Why not? He just said you could.
As a whole commission.
Well, he said we had the latitude, sounded like to me.
Yeah, in my view, there would be two acts, right? One would be the original resolution that would state what the board wants to do with the existing board moving forward. In terms of your appointments for the new board, once it's reconstituted, that would be, technically speaking, a second or an act that would follow up soon after. So,
Well, you're thinking, Travis. I don't know if I made this clear. I don't wanna appoint anybody for the two new commissioners that are coming on. I wanna appoint my two as we move forward, or just January 1st, we can get together, and I want so-and-so and so, whoever is in the district and whoever is working. So that would be simple for me, because it stays the same. I'm
You have
not,
3 right now. Oh, you have an empty seat.
yeah.
But say I have 3. 2 of them will no longer reside in my
You
district.
want one of my empty seats?
No, I'm just saying that you can't have it where you're not appointing to the new commissioner and not dismissing the people that are already there, because those two things
Well,
can't be true.
I want to make sure that the two new commissioners coming on, that they get to appoint two.
Right, so we have to
commissioners
dismiss everyone
If we
and
can,
reappoint.
if we can. But
That
the
necessitates that we dismiss everyone and reappoint. And I can reappoint the same people, 2 of them under 10.
And I could too.
But I can't do all 3. One's gonna lose their job unless one of the new commissioners wants them.
Yeah, and if
So
I
we
was,
have to dismiss.
if I
and
was a new
reappoint.
commissioner coming in, I think I'd want to have somebody with some experience representing me.
And maybe, and I can make a recommendation. I can call the new commissioner in District 4 and say, hey, here's somebody who served well for me. You might want to think about them, but it's their call.
Well,
But they have to be dismissed and then reappointed.
okay, well, I've kind of muddied this up pretty good, so maybe the chair has a better solution. I'm all ears.
So, I mean, I stand by kind of my original, one, which I would like 10 commissioners. The reason that for 9, my concerns and those 4 at-large positions is because even before I came on the board, right, I saw how those at-large appointments got so contentious and took up big span of time. And I just don't want to get into that with 2 additional commissioners. It's just gonna, I feel like just gonna be, it's gonna be hard. And so that's why I'm supporting 10 commissioners, 2 per district. I don't really have heartache if one is at large and one is, or 2 per district. I support the 4-year terms. And I support the term lengths. Actually, it was Kevin Pessinger who submitted them, just because it doesn't seem to fall kind of like on commissioner's election year, so therefore it's not really, it doesn't get to be, if you're in an election year and you're appointing a planning commissioner, I feel like that's when the politics go into it, because you're not, and I feel like that kind of pulls away from it. And so I supported, just reviewing those term lengths that he proposed for the 10 members. I didn't really review the ones for 9 members, but I reviewed the one for 10, and I supported, thought they were pretty interesting. And I understand that, we have to, for me, I'm gonna be out too, and I will just have one in my district, really. So, my district's about to change as well.
Could I make a suggestion? I don't know how it's gonna work, but how about we're gonna send this, we're gonna have a discussion here if it's gonna be 4 or 6 years, it sounds like. It sounds like we've got 2 for 4 and 1 for 6, so that's the democratic process. I see how that works and I'm not squawking about it. But how about we're gonna make a few changes to send back to staff? Why don't we ask staff to put something together so each commissioner gets 2 appointments? One can be anywhere in the county and one from their district.
I think, I was gonna say, if we do that, it helps us to keep, then I could keep 2 of my commissioners.
Yeah, I'm just trying to accommodate everybody and be fair, everything.
And I could live with that as a compromise.
Okay.
If we could do 1 at large and 1 in the district.
I don't have
Does that
any.
kind of solve that then? Are we gonna be able to solve this right here, does it sound like? I'm good with that.
So I'm hearing 10 members.
Yep.
1 in the district, 1 at large, and at least 2 commissioners saying 4-year terms.
Yep. And I guess, I'm not gonna fight the
So we
4-year term.
Terms, we've got that.
So you can bring back then a modified.
And look at Mr. Pessinger's, I didn't scrutinize with my brain the staggering. It may be that that's great. And if staff doesn't see any problem with that,
We worked on
staggering,
it.
is there a problem with it, or is it? Is there a better way?
I think we can work through, Mr. Pessinger's proposed staggering and work it into the ordinance after looking at it.
And maybe have 1 term 4 years and 1 3 years or something like that.
So if we just play this out, so taking my district, District 3, I get a 3-year and a 2-year, so I'll get to make, and I'll get to choose, or how will I know?
Why a 3-year and a 2-year?
That's just what
That's
what he
just
wrote.
what-
I don't know why.
Let's think-
I don't know why. I'm
Oh.
just looking at what he wrote.
Okay,
So I would get to make a 3-year appointment and a 2-year appointment. 1 would live in my district, 1 would be at large. Would it matter which one got which, or would they be, okay, I could basically dictate that?
And so think of it like a relay race, because you've got some commissioners coming in at different terms. And so we've got to get on the staggering, we have to have different terms at the beginning to
Just
get
like
into
with the
that.
commissioner links.
Yep, exactly.
And I believe Mr. Pessinger tried to work it out so it would be asynchronous with your term, so we wouldn't be, they wouldn't be sunsetting out or even finishing their term when your term ends.
It'd
It's gonna be
overlap.
into your
they would
successor's term.
continue on after I left office,
So we
right?
allow for overlap there.
Yeah, and that'd be good overlap.
I'm
I
good with
think.
that.
Yeah.
If that's the way it's set up, I'm good with the
work that out.
concept.
I think, look, see, I told you you'd have it all figured out.
Hire everybody
See how
on
it works? We
December
we
31st
can
of
agree on
this year.
things without being too
And
contentious.
then
Or
new
the-
appointments, and thank you.
So 10 members versus 9, 4-year terms, and then
Then-
working in 1 in district, 1 at large, and then coming up with a proposed staggering, which basically we're still in a position of rescinding and replacing and coming up with a staggering process to implement.
Everybody expires on December 31st, and then we implement the new
reappointed.
staggering.
I don't know if I wanna call that expiring, maybe reappointed.
Well, right, it's the same thing.
This
It's
is the
just,
sunset process.
It's a sunset.
Okay, well, let's see what it looks like when it comes back.
And then-
Functionally, it's just words, everybody gets what you've just discussed.
So then my next proposal for commissioners is, our last meeting of the year, just so there is no, since I know terms expire, is to bring forward, once this is approved by the board, to bring your proposals December 12th is usually.
I thought it was the 15th we get together.
Well, the 15th will pass the budget, and if there's any
Don't we have a,
urgent things, but the board meeting on the 12th will be your last regular meeting.
Proposals
And
for,
why would you
New
wait
commissioners?
until
for new
then to
commissioner
do that?
appointments, for
Oh.
appointments, that
Well,
way.
the election will be
Sure.
over.
Well, yeah, well, that way we can all
Certified.
appoint, like, the planning commissioners that way, because they expire on the 31st of December, right? And then that way, we appoint them, that way they're able to start on January 1st, since the three of us will still be here. And then that way, there's no
Only
huge
4.
gaps, right? We can appoint 2 commissioners for each ones, and if there needs to be a planning commission meeting, they'll have 6 members to at least meet up while
Right.
the other 2 come on January
And making
1st
their
and,
selection.
and make their selection. So that's just a recommendation for commissioners to kind of start thinking about it and bring, I guess, proposals
Yeah.
And there'd be-
sometime in December.
There'd be nothing to preclude appointment earlier for a
Well,
term
yeah.
starting in January once this is adopted.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Right.
I'm just.
With
I
this
just-
system, I mean, with what we just agreed on,
what we just roughed out.
with what we just roughed out, like, I know who mine are. I'm gonna keep 2 of them.
I
and
think I'm.
I can put
saying-
them up
I
there
think I
tomorrow,
do too,
so.
so.
Great.
So we'll add that to the timeline. The first action is going to be bringing what you all just decided forward for final draft approval, and then that'll come to the board.
Or for at least discussion, and we'll decide if we're gonna finally approve it or not.
Right, and so all those all that discussion happens after the board approves the functional
But I do
next
think the
steps.
sooner the better for us to be able to.
We could have this next week.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have to go, oh Jesus, 12:23. Do you have a?
Thank you, board.
I may have to cancel it. I mean, I don't know. What's our plan
Thank you,
here?
appreciate it.
We have 3 executive sessions. Do you have?
So one of them is time sensitive, and that's the leave buyout.
Okay.
And then well, 2 of them are time sensitive. The second one should be extremely short. We can do it in 10 minutes or less, I'm sure.
Okay.
And then the third item, again, staff has a proposal, Commissioner Mejia has a proposal. It could be quite short.
I'll
Okay.
See if we can power through. All right.
Okay, so we are going into executive session per RCW, there's gonna be 3. RCW 42.30.110 subsection 1G, a closed session per RCW 42.30.140 subsection 4A, and an executive session per RCW 42.30.110 subsection 1G. The first one is to evaluate the qualifications of an applicant for public employment or to review the performance of a public employee, county manager leave buyout. The second one is collective bargaining session, or B, that portion of a meeting during which the governing body is planning or adopting the strategy or position to be taken by the governing body during the course of any collective bargaining contracts. And the next is to evaluate qualifications of an applicant for public employment or to review the performance of a public employee, budget reductions in the commissioner's office. We'll go ahead and go into executive session for.
Before we do, Jane would like to make a comment regarding the executive sessions.
Jane, you're on mute.
Unmute, Jane.
Thank you. I thought I'd gotten all set up and I missed that one. Good morning, Jane Futterman, Deputy Prosecuting Attorney. So I just wanted to make sure it's clear with everybody that the 2 executive sessions you've got for the that are listed as county manager leave buyout and budget reductions in commissioner's office, those 2 are listed as executive sessions based on evaluating qualifications or performance of a public employee. So they're quite narrow. So to the extent that you are actually reviewing performance, you could be in executive session for that. If it's a broader discussion on budget issues or policy, that needs to be in open session. And then I had also discussed with Robin, potential, at least for the first one, I don't know if it would be an issue of legal risk, and it would, the executive session might fall under potential
good.
Go ahead.
Okay, we are back from executive session for RCW 42.30.110 subsection 1G to evaluate the qualifications of an applicant for public employment or to review the performance of a public employee, county manager leave buyout. There's no action that follows. Well, we will be following the county policy in terms of leave buyout.
And we will amend this afternoon's agenda to remove the item that would have granted additional leave.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Next item, I forgot that item was in it. For closed session, RCW 42.30.140 subsection 4A, collective bargaining sessions, or B, that portion of a meeting during which the governing body is planning or adopting the strategy or position to be taken by a governing body during the course of any collective bargaining contracts. No action follows that. And executive session, RCW 42.30.110 to evaluate the qualifications of an applicant for public employment or to review the performance of a public employee. Budget reductions in the commissioner's office. No commissioner's action follows that, and we will be having our second part of that discussion now. So we have two handouts. One of the first ones, the one in big letters, are my recommendations. You've also received a recommendation from staff on those. Should I go through mine first, or you want to go ahead? So I've been thinking about this. I'll start with option B first because I think that one is a little bit more streamlined. So in 2021, when we passed the racial equity resolution, there was budget discussions where we created the position, but there was also a position that was created in public health. I requested during that time that that position not be filled, and the board agreed and voted on that position to not be filled until there was a racial equity plan in place. So that position has remained vacant. There is, I believe there's approximately $115,000 that is set aside for that position in public health. My recommendation is, since this was an initiative from public health, that position, that funding be moved to basically fund the position that we have in the commissioner's office, since it kind of falls under that same umbrella of racial equity. The resolution started with public health. It's got public health measures. It's a public health initiative. So that is my recommendation to fund that racial equity program manager. I listed some pros. It's like, we would have general fund savings from that position. I didn't see really any cons with that. I thought it was pretty simple. So that is.
It's your recommendation number one.
And then the option A, which is not as popular, or, it was kind of hard to land on this. So we have to fund the two new commissioners that are coming in, since there was a vote. However, the two additional staff, new executive aides that do come attached to those two commissioners, we are not obligated to fund those. I know that I consider myself extremely lucky to have an executive aide that, and I know I make full use of them. And I know that both of you do as well. And I know that this is a big request, but I was, concerned was like, if we cut the new executive assistants, either one or two of them, right? Could it create that, that, and we wouldn't have to cut an actual person sitting in a position right now, since the positions are currently vacant. Of course, the cons is that it would more than likely create an impact on existing aides, and
Would you actually have to cut one though?
More than likely, you say?
That's because you have 4 right now with the commanding manager. And now you're saying to share 5 commissioners with 1, then you'd only need 3, and we already have 4.
well, no, because we're getting 2 additional commissioners and 2 executive assistants.
See, so 3 commissioners have 3 aides.
Right.
We're gonna have 5 commissioners in our base budget or our maintenance level budget is 5 aides.
Because
she's proposing 4 aides for 5 commissioners.
Oh, you're just cutting one.
Yes, or both. I mean, she's put them on the table.
One or both considering,
So-
and then I know this, that, you know, one, it would create an impact on current aides. And commissioners would have to readjust kind of their reliance on kind of what they do. I'm willing to share my aid with another commissioner, and willing to take that impact. But I think it, you know, it's just a way for us, you know, to kind of
Those are
shift and
right.
mitigate.
Those are 2 ideas on the table. The budget team has come forward with a slightly different proposal. This is in 2 parts because the Board of County Commissioners has 2 targets. The first is for your actual Office of County Commissioners, that's Department 03, and the second is for Department 23, also known as non-departmental. And your target, as Commissioner Mejia has stated, did I swap the numbers? Is it actually 237 or is it 273? I may have transposed the target amount. In any case, while you look that up in the interest of time, we've proposed that we fund the only half of the DEI position with public health funds. That is about $75,000 out of public health. It minimizes the impact on public health, and it leaves this position open for doing countywide things and not focused as much on the determinants of public health.
Okay, can we discuss this as we go along?
Why don't you let me do the package and then open it for
Okay,
discussion?
okay.
I have to ask, I have someone waiting for me and I have tons of questions about this and there's no way it's
Great.
gonna be covered in the 0 minutes I have. So what's the timing issue on when these decisions have to be made?
So we can bring this back during the budget weeks in early October, but we wanted to set something out for
Can
your
I just meet with you,
consideration.
Robin? We have a meeting
Absolutely.
tomorrow. Can we just go over this tomorrow?
Yep.
Thank you. This is way too complicated for the time I have, sorry.
Okay, so go ahead, and then you were gonna finish, you had a little bit more.
Okay, if
No,
you
that's
both
fine.
have time, all right. The second item is, there's 50,000 in our budget, to contract for a DEI plan. DV is working on that now, so we could take that 50,000 out, permanently. And then, in calculating how much the county would need for 2 new commissioners and 2 aides, I estimated roughly 750,000 when it was going on the ballot. When we put that in the budget, Jennifer did the work to figure out exactly what we actually need, and that's overstated by 100,000, so we could take our budget down by that much. That gets us to $225,000 in the commissioner's office. So I'm gonna pause there.
Okay. My initial blush is that I don't know if my aide, and she's the one that's gonna be here the shortest period of time. I don't know how that's gonna work, because I keep her pretty busy and she can't keep up with the workload that I give her,
Okay,
to be honest with you. And we only have a year to go. I'm the old guy. She's gonna go when I go, it sounds like. She's had it. And so I'm not sure that I agree that that's the best way to do that. And then there's some other considerations. We had talked about what would happen with these new elected positions, and that doesn't match with, unfortunately, with your proposal. I think they were expecting that they're gonna get an executive aide like the other commissioners have had. So this is new.
So that's why I'm volunteering to share mine,
Yeah,
right?
okay,
Just as, but it's not a guarantee, and other counties don't have, they
One in
share
per
per
commissioner,
commissioner,
that's
and
right.
so
Okay,
it's
how about
not a
other counties of
requirement.
our size?
Kitsap has 2 that are shared
For
amongst
3.
all board members.
And it's a smaller operation, what is it, 250,000 or something?
No, it's
about the same.
Are they
just
the same?
shy of 300,000.
Is it? Okay. Well, anyway, so I don't know that I'm in favor of that, but, you know, we're all in the process of negotiating. I don't understand why Foundational Public Health can't pick up the whole thing on the
They
racial.
certainly could, but we get very close to the target without taking an aid and only doing half with public health funding. We
Yeah,
can
but-
get to the rest of the way to the target with other things.
Well, but why not, they've got the public health fund. That's not a budget that's in trouble.
Okay, well, you could
So
certainly do it all.
I take the whole thing
All right.
because it applies to the whole county operation of wellness and acceptance and anything else you want to refer to.
Determinants equity is clearly
Yeah.
a determinant of
It's
public health.
the big picture deal. It's public health.
Sure.
So I don't see splitting that with the general fund.
Okay,
Okay, so, I think that we need to leave, and the 100,000 you're saving, okay, that amount, I don't know.
That's a
I think
given.
it's actually maybe less, I think we can save more than that, on that. I don't know, but,
no, we can't,
You
because
can't.
the bulk of it that's remaining is salaries.
yeah, okay, well, and that would include the new commissioner's salary, benefits,
the new
and the
aides.
executive aid.
Yep,
But we're 100 over on the total thing.
yep.
Okay, then, okay, so I'm saying why not Department of Health for, the
Certainly
racial
could.
equity? The Criminal Justice Program Manager, and I'm not for laying anybody off. I'm for
So wait,
changing some positions.
We can't talk about.
No, we can't talk about filled positions in an open meeting.
Oh, okay, we were just talking about empty positions.
That's, these two proposals
Okay,
are.
well, I do have some filled positions that I would like to see them reassigned to something else from the commissioner's office. They'll still be doing an assignment. We'll put them in a department where we can expect certain things and fill an empty position now. So I won't go into that in any more depth. I want to keep the people. I just am trying to figure out a way to get rid of the positions out of the commissioner's office and into other offices doing the same job where they fit. That's all.
But I don't think that would alleviate really
That doesn't save any money.
the general fund, what we're trying to do
Well, we
here
still
is-
have plenty of empty FTEs coming up. Don't we have
You
140 FTEs empty right now?
We really need to be careful about where this conversation is going.
Yes, I understand. Jane doesn't necessarily agree with that opinion that we got from.
I think the last vacancy report was around 170.
170.
I think so.
But we also don't know what other offices and departments are.
No, we only have control over certain departments. We don't have control over any of the other offices.
Correct.
But we could certainly ask, other elected officials, hey, what do you think about this? This fits within your deal. Okay, well, anyway, that's kind of where I'm at, and I can't talk about these other ones because, well, don't we have a empty one coming up on program analysis? Didn't we just get?
Program analysis?
Kind of working for you, I thought.
That's a central services position.
Yeah.
That's in central services.
could
That's
maybe be
not in
split
these
out.
two.
It's not in your deal.
No.
I got it on my list though. And the position I thought was vacant now.
It's not
Which
general
one?
fund though.
It's not a general fund.
It's not a general
Oh,
fund.
it's not a general fund budget? No position?
Central services.
Which position are you talking about?
This one right here.
Right, that is not a general fund position.
That's not general.
Nope.
Okay, well, you might know I'd get it in the wrong column then. Okay, well, I think we've got more discussions to come on this,
We
it sounds
absolutely
like.
do.
I don't know what Commissioner Mincer feels about
Nope.
because we won't know now until he has a chance to have his discussion with you guys.
Right.
So we made a little headway.
We also have, I will say, in non-departmental, the items that we have on the list here, we have 832,000 earmarked to go into the budget stabilization account. We don't need to do that. That is an ongoing amount that we could eliminate up to that much. I suggested 400,000. And then the transfer to public health is currently $1,093,000. They have identified that 100,000 of that does not go to specific purposes, so we could reduce that in non-departmental. And then I didn't take anything out of it, but we have 1,024,000 that goes to animal services currently. So there's that. So
Have we come
this
up with a
was
solution on animal services, what we plan on
not
doing?
yet, not
That's
yet.
something
So
that's
that's
still in the
why
works,
it's
right?
just sitting there on the table.
Okay.
So more to come.
More to come, okay.
Okay, so 102,
Actually, we had a pretty productive session.
we are adjourned.